Chapter 2283. The world was in chaos. Lin Sun's clones covered the battlefield and crisscrossed with one another. The hundreds of great emperors panicked. Even though they'd instantly determined that it was a clone technique, when they truly fought those 3,000 figures, all of them noticed to their horror that the combat strength of those clones was extraordinarily formidable. Boom! An expert of the first-level martial emperor realm was surrounded by more than 10 doppelgangers of the peak of the quasi-emperor realm and was killed in an instant. His body and soul were completely destroyed. On the other side, a third-level great emperor was fighting with all his might. Although he managed to defeat the clones, he was severely injured and his body was bleeding profusely. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He couldn't believe that Lin Sun's clone was able to injure him, a third-level Emperor Realm cultivator. At the same time, in different parts of the battlefield, after the initial panic, the old monsters had figured out the strength of the clones. An ordinary first-level Emperor Realm cultivator would be dead for sure if they were ganged up on. A second-level Great Emperor would have a chance to fight back, but they would also be killed. Third-level Emperors had the power to kill these doppelgangers, but they would be injured in the process. Only a fourth-level Great Emperor and above would be able to suppress and kill the clones. Even so, the old monsters were still in disbelief. If the clones were this strong, how strong would Lin Sun's main body be? Rumble, the world shook even more violently. Blood rained down, and the terrifying light of the Tao spread out, shaking the world. The 3,000 clones of the Blackwater Taoist physique were being destroyed one by one, but at the same time, the old monsters were being killed. At the same time, the 4 clones, Greenwood, Platinum, Yellow Earth, and Scarlet Flame, were fighting fiercely with some 5th and 6th level Great Emperors. After Lin Sun became a Great Emperor, the 5 Great Taoist physiques were no weaker than his main body. The Blackwater Taoist physique, for example, was able to trap the entire battlefield with the 3,000 weak water. Similarly, the might and resources possessed by the other 4 Tao bodies weren't inferior to them in any way. At this moment, every single one of them had erupted with peerless and monstrous combat strength that reigned supreme in the universe in this battle. Fortunately, these Tao bodies were able to block and kill Lin Sun. Otherwise, he wouldn't be surrounded by a group of 5th and 6th level emperors. Up in the sky, Battle God Feng Ling looked down. The entire battlefield was filled with destructive torrents of the Grand Tao, and dazzling divine radiance swept out like a river and shook the heavens and the earth. Hundreds of great emperors were caught up in the bloody battle. As time passed, more and more people died. On the other hand, Lin Sun's momentum was like a rainbow, and he was like a great abyss that covered the sky and the earth. He swept through the battlefield and slaughtered with unparalleled might. Battle Monarch Feng Ling's heart trembled, and his pupils dilated in disbelief. A young man who had just become a martial emperor was fighting against hundreds of martial emperor old monsters from the starry heavens. An emperor battle of this scale had never been seen before in the past. Although there were many great emperors participating in the Tao battles of the 10 directions and the Tao battles of the emperors, none of them were like this, where one person was fighting against all enemies by himself. Battle Monarch Feng Ling was sure that if news of today's battle were spread, the entire ancient path of the stars would fall into an uproar and shock. And Lin Sun, who had defeated all the great emperors by himself, was destined to shock the world. He was destined to become a heaven-connecting overlord who could shake the entire ancient path of the stars with a stomp of his foot. Even throughout the ages, throughout the heavens, there wasn't a single person that could compare to him. Crunch, crunch, the crisp sound of someone eating melon sounded in his ears. Battle Monarch Feng Ling's lips twitched in shock, and his heart was filled with a strange and indescribable feeling. In the face of such an unprecedented battle between emperors, Xia Ji was still acting like she was watching a show. This was very strange. Let's go. In the chaotic and turbulent battlefield, some of the cultivators below the 3rd level of the Emperor Realm chose to flee without any hesitation. The truth was that from the start of the battle until now, cultivators at their level were the most threatened and the number of casualties was also the highest. On the other hand, Lin Sun had yet to be suppressed by anyone, and this made them see no hope of victory. Moreover, they came from different forces and were not united. How could they risk their lives just because of a command from Heavenly Monarch? Sure. Run. They could only run. In an instant, the battlefield was in chaos as figures fled in all directions like stray dogs. If you run now, aren't you afraid that Heavenly Monarch sure will come after you later? Battle Monarch Song Lu of the primitive Dao court roared. His face was livid with anger. These bastards, they fled as soon as the situation turned sour. What a coward! If we don't run, do we have to die with you? Old man Song Lu, if you're willing to be a loyal dog for Heavenly Monarch sure, then don't run this time. A torrent of curses sounded. Battle Monarch Song Lu was so angry that his lungs almost exploded. What do you mean by a mob? That's it. When there's a profit to be made, they run faster than anyone else, but when the situation turns sour, they're the first to run. Boom! A terrifying Dao light swept across as Lin Sun's Greenwood Daoist physique attacked. Battle Monarch Song Lu didn't dare to be distracted anymore and fought with all his might, venting his anger in the battle. Awesome! In the sky, Battle Monarch Feng Ling's blood boiled with excitement as he witnessed this scene. Young lady, are we going to chase after those guys? She ate the melon in her hand and took out another one to break it open. The current situation is far from a landslide. Although Lin Sun is strong, there are still many troublesome old fools. Battle Monarch Feng Ling looked closely and found that most of those who were fleeing were below the 3rd level of the Emperor Realm. There were at least 100 who were above the 4th level of the Emperor Realm. Among them, there were more than 10 who were at the 6th level of the Emperor Realm and a few dozen who were at the 5th level of the Emperor Realm. The strength of this lineup was not to be underestimated. On the other hand, most of Lin Sun's 3,000 doppelgangers had already dissipated. They were no longer much of a threat to those old monsters who were above the 4th level of the Emperor Realm. Meanwhile, his main body and the 5 Daoist physiques were being attacked and pinned down. This is already extremely impressive. Battle Monarch Feng Ling murmured. A single person was able to fight against hundreds of Emperor Realm old monsters and hold them off until now. Even those 5th and 6th level Emperor Realm cultivators were unable to suppress him. How terrifying was this? The real battle begins now. She ate a melon and commented seriously, those guys just now are no longer enough. Battle Monarch Feng Ling smiled bitterly. How many people in this world would dare to look down on those Emperor Realm cultivators like this? Boom! A streak of dazzling sword chi filled the sky. The Cloud Light Sword Monarch and several old monsters of the 6th level of the Emperor Realm attacked Lin Sun with all their might. I like to see how long you, a brat who has just become a martial emperor, can last. The Cloud Light Sword Monarch gritted his teeth. His murderous intent was shocking as his martial emperor aura surged. He was a sword cultivator of the 5th level of the Emperor Realm, a peerless sword monarch. Whoever escapes today will be my grandson. Tui, I, Lin Daoyuan, don't have unfilial descendants like you. At this moment, Lin Sun's aura became more and more profound. Like a chaotic abyss, a peerless aura erupted from him. He had an invincible aura. He swung his fist. Boom! With a single punch, the sky and earth collapsed. Brat, I'll destroy your soul in a moment. The Cloudlight Sword Monarch roared angrily as he waved his sword chi to block the punch. But in the blink of an eye, his sword chi was crushed and he staggered backward. If it weren't for the other old monsters surrounding and restraining Lin Sun, the consequences would be unimaginable. Later, I'll send you on your way now. As he said, Lin Sun stretched out his hand and grasped the air. A 9-inch sword chi suddenly appeared as if it was unsheathed from the ancient times. The dazzling sword chi pierced through the sky and the earth. He drew the sword. 9-inch eternal destruction. The profound meaning of this sword was like drawing the sword and asking the sky. It had a kind of sharpness that could break through the 9 heavens. Boom! The old monsters who besieged Lin Sun were shaken away by this sword in an instant. Their faces all changed, and their eyes were full of horror. They couldn't imagine how Lin Sun could have such a powerful combat power when he was besieged. The Cloudlight Sword Monarch let out a strange cry full of anger. He bore the brunt of the attack and was locked by this sword. No matter how he tried to dodge, he couldn't get rid of it. No matter how he tried to resist, he was defeated by this sword. "Help me!" The Cloudlight Sword Monarch panicked and roared. But as soon as his voice sounded, it stopped abruptly. He saw Bang. The sword Chi tore the sky apart and slashed him in the air. His body was crushed by the vast sword Chi, turning into a rain of blood and dissipating completely. An unparalleled sword monarch at the 5th level of the Emperor Realm had died under a single sword. This was also the first person at the 5th level of the Emperor Realm to be killed since the beginning of the battle. When the old monsters at the 6th level of the Emperor Realm witnessed this scene, their hearts trembled and their scalps went numb. Looking at Lin Sun, he was surrounded by a vast Emperor aura. He was as bright as the immortal sun, illuminating the land and overpowering the arrogance of the old monsters. At this moment, the 4th level of the Emperor Realm, who were still struggling on the battlefield, felt a boundless chill and their fighting spirit was shaken. The Cloudlight Sword Monarch was so powerful, but he was also killed by Lin Sun in a single strike. They didn't dare to imagine that without the suppression of the old monsters at the 6th level of the Emperor Realm, none of them would be a match for Lin Sun. Without any hesitation, the 4th level of the Emperor Realm also fled. Another batch has been eliminated. Xia Ji, who was eating melon, had a hint of surprise in her clear voice. In comparison, Lin Sun, who has stepped into the Emperor Realm, is actually stronger than me. She seemed to be in disbelief as well. It was as if she had always thought that Lin Sun could only be protected by her, that she had always been stronger than Lin Sun. Battle Emperor Feng Ling had a strange expression on his face. He had almost forgotten that this girl beside him was also a heaven-defying character. Chapter 2284. There were only about 50 Emperor Realm old monsters left on the battlefield. Compared to the beginning, the number had decreased by about 80%. Of these 80%, 20% were cultivators below the 4th level of the Emperor Realm. There were about 60 of them. The others chose to escape. In other words, the number of Emperor Realm cultivators that Lin Sun had killed was far less than the number of Emperor Realm cultivators that had escaped. This also proved that this was indeed a motley crew, and they were far from being of the same breadth and branch, moving in and out together. But even so, the number of Emperor Realm experts killed by Lin Sun was still enough to shock the whole world. The battle did not end there. On the contrary, it was getting more and more dangerous. Every single one of the 50 old monsters that remained had the fighting strength of a 5th or 6th level martial emperor. Their auras were extremely terrifying. Even if Lin Sun killed Sword Emperor Yunguang, which made their hearts tremble, they didn't retreat. First, because they believed that Lin Sun, who had just stepped into the Emperor Realm, would not be able to last long. First, because they were confident that even if the worst happened, they would be able to retreat with their own strength. In fact, Lin Sun and the 5 Tao bodies were indeed trapped. The situation they were facing had not changed much. It was even more difficult for Lin Sun to kill an opponent like the Cloudlight Sword Emperor. The reason was that these old monsters had become vigilant and serious. They saw Lin Sun as their greatest enemy. Every time they sensed danger, they would rather retreat than fight him head-on. Boom! The battlefield was filled with murderous intent. The sound of Tao rumbled and resounded in all directions. "Little bastard, I will exhaust you to death." Some of the old monsters had cold and hateful looks on their faces. A 1st-level Emperor Realm cultivator with heaven-defying combat strength had fought to this point. This made their hearts palpitate. It was an unspeakable humiliation. If we don't kill him this time, I'm afraid no one in the heavens will be able to suppress him in the future. Some of the old monsters had serious looks on their faces. He had just stepped into the Emperor Realm, and he already had the combat strength to kill a 5th-level Emperor Realm cultivator. This was not just heaven-defying, it was simply abnormal. Since ancient times, who had just become an Emperor realm cultivator with such unparalleled combat strength. If such a person survived, as his cultivation and strength increased, he was destined to become more and more powerful and terrifying. If that time really came, then who in the all heavens would be a match for him? Kill. Even if we can't seize his fortune, we have to completely eradicate this great threat. Some old monsters roared with a murderous intent. They had completely offended Lin Sun a long time ago. Needless to say, if Lin Sun survived, they would suffer from Lin Sun's revenge sooner or later. This was what they feared the most. One can only be a thief for 1,000 days. How can one guard against a thief for 1,000 days? Don't worry, when I set foot on the starry ancient path again, I will definitely pay you a visit one by one and settle the score with all of you. Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep, and his whole body was steaming with the surging emperor law, which evolved into an abyss. Even though he was besieged and in a dangerous situation, he was not suppressed. In other words, from the very beginning, he had been using these old bastards to consolidate his cultivation. Gang Ju became an emperor. The new realm, new power, and new cultivation made Lin Sun's body undergo earth-shaking changes. However, this kind of change needed to be acclimatized and consolidated. Battling was undoubtedly the most direct and simple way to temper himself. Not only could he grasp the strength of the Emperor realm as quickly as possible, he could also use this opportunity to test and temper his cultivation. Everyone heard it as well. This kid is utterly deranged. If he's allowed to live, he'll bring calamity to the universe sooner or later and give rise to countless storms of blood. One of the old-timers had a livid expression on his face as he howled. Kill! Kill this fiend! The eyes of those old freaks turned red, and their attacks grew stronger and stronger, causing this expanse of the heavens and the earth to fall into great chaos and upheaval. The pressure on Lin Sun increased tremendously. He chanted a Tao voice and recalled his 5 Taoist forms at once. Instead of fighting on their own, he fought with his own body. In this way, although he suddenly became the target of everyone, he didn't need to fear the oppression of enemies from all directions with the help of his 5 clones. In the sky, even Battle Monarch Feng Ling couldn't help but feel nervous. The first level of the Emperor realm was the state of no obsession. The so-called no obsession meant not being bound by Tao or laws. Those who abide by it have a basis, and those who hold on to it have no obsession. To bear the burden of the Tao, one must have no obsession. When one reached this level, a world would be created within the body of the Emperor realm, constructed from the pure and abundant power of the Emperor realm. This world was also regarded as the My Emperor realm. The more profound one's cultivation was, the more vast and magnificent the My Emperor realm would be, and the more terrifying the power it released would be. In addition, at the first level of the Emperor realm, the soul would transform into the Dharma form of will. As long as the Dharma form and thoughts remained, one's cultivation would be eternal. When one's blood and chi transformed into the Emperor physique, one could be reborn even if there was only a drop of blood or a piece of bone left. This was the Emperor realm. As long as one didn't suffer an attack that would cause one to be annihilated, one's life was almost immortal and could live as long as the heavens. Therefore, there was a saying in the Emperor realm, those who have no obsession will live as long as the heavens and earth. Battle Monarch Feng Ling had also made his way up from the first level of the Emperor realm, so how could he not know the secrets of this level? In the past countless years, he had seen many cultivators of the first level of the Emperor realm. There were males and females, and they came in all shapes and sizes. Some of them had extraordinary foundations and could suppress those of the same level. They were dazzling beyond compare, and they were regarded as the rising stars of the Emperor realm. Their names resounded throughout the heavens, and their futures were limitless. There were also some who had ordinary foundations and weren't dazzling, but they were still Emperor realm cultivators after all. They were far superior to cultivators below the Emperor realm. The reason for this was that in the Dharma form of will, My Emperor realm and Emperor physique, there were vast differences between cultivators of the same level. These three types of cultivation represented the refinement of soul, refinement of chi, and refinement of body. This was also why only those who cultivated in all three paths of cultivation had any hope of becoming Emperor Realm cultivators. However, those who cultivated in all three paths of cultivation might not be able to refine all three paths to perfection. Therefore, there was a difference in strength among cultivators of the same level. Even though Battle Monarch Feng Ling had seen many cultivators of the first level of the Emperor Realm in the past countless years, he had never seen anyone like Lin Sun, who was able to surpass several levels of the Emperor Realm and fight against cultivators of the 5th and 6th level of the Emperor Realm. This completely overturned Battle Monarch Feng Ling's understanding. He couldn't believe that this was the power of a cultivator of the first level of the Emperor Realm. He also knew that Lin Sun was the only Emperor Realm cultivator in the past 100,000 years. He also knew what kind of power the word Emperor Realm represented in the Emperor Realm, but he himself didn't know. However, he knew very well that in the ancient times, there were also emperors of the Emperor Realm who walked the heavens, and they had also shone with dazzling brilliance that shocked the world. However, the Emperor Realm of the ancient era didn't seem to be as nature-defying and unbelievable as Lin Sun. It was recorded in the ancient books of the Dark Yellow Dao Court that in the primeval times, there was a peerless great emperor in the Dark Yellow Dao Court that appeared out of nowhere and suppressed 8 of his peers who were at the 3rd level of the Emperor Realm by himself. Because of this, his name shook the world. However, this was also the most dazzling achievement of that Emperor Realm cultivator. He wasn't like Lin Sun, who could kill cultivators of the 4th level of the Emperor Realm as easily as turning over his hand and killing cultivators of the 5th level of the Emperor Realm. Furthermore, he was able to fight against a group of cultivators of the 5th and 6th level of the Emperor Realm by himself. This was too insane. He could be said to be the first person to do so since the beginning of time. However, Lin Sun was currently surrounded and in a perilous situation. Battle Monarch Feng Ling's heart couldn't help but tighten, and he didn't dare to breathe too loudly. Crack! Crack! The sound of Xia eating melon rang out in his ears again. The crunching sound was extremely piercing. At this moment, Battle Monarch Feng Ling almost couldn't help but ask, Lin Sun is already in such a perilous situation, and you're still in the mood to eat melons? But in the end, he managed to restrain himself as he suddenly realized a problem. The melon-eating girl beside him was also an unbelievably powerful and ruthless person. She hadn't even made a move yet, so what was he worrying about? Moreover, if Lin Sun really was in mortal danger, how could this melon-eating girl remain indifferent? With this thought in mind, Battle Monarch Feng Ling's nervous heart instantly calmed down a little. He glanced at the jade-green spirit melon in Xia Zhi's hand and gulped involuntarily. Was this melon really that delicious? Do you want to eat it? Xia Zhi asked. Battle Monarch Feng Ling was slightly taken aback. He hesitated for a moment before replying, I can try it. He felt like he was about to lose face. How could he still be thinking about eating melons at a time like this? This seemed to be a little disrespectful to Brother Lin, who was fighting for his life. Xia Zhi shoved all the spirit melons in a Battle Monarch Feng Ling's hands before stretching her slender waist. It should be my turn soon. There was a hint of eagerness in her voice that was as clear as the sounds of nature. Battle Monarch Feng Ling took a bite of the spirit melon and savored the refreshing and sweet flesh. His heart became more and more relaxed. Miss Melon Eating was finally going to fight, so he could only eat the melon. But right at this moment, he suddenly froze. Xia Zhi also froze. At the same time, Lin Sun, who was on the battlefield, suddenly took a deep breath, and a magnificent, dreamy light burst forth in front of him. In an instant, those old monsters who were besieging him seemed to be frozen, and their movements and figures all stopped. At this moment, Lin Sun and his 5 doppelgangers began to attack together. Pooh! 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 Peerlessly resplendent sword chi, palm prints that were forceful like a mountain, peerlessly sharp finger force, and dazzling beams of divine flames swept out together, and the people surrounding them were either slashed to death, killed, assassinated, or incinerated. All of this happened in an instant. The 7 old monsters who were besieging Lin Sun at the forefront were all killed on the spot. The scarlet rain of blood was like a burst of firecrackers, rising and falling one after another. Blood dyed the sky red. Chapter 2285. In an instant, the 7 old antiques were killed on the spot. This sudden scene caused everyone's hearts to tremble, and they retreated far away at the first possible moment. They couldn't help but reveal expressions of astonishment on their faces. Among the 7 antiques, there were 4 5th and 3 6th level Emperor realms. They'd been charging at the forefront earlier and had firmly pinned down Lin Sun, preventing him from breaking out of the encirclement. But now, all 7 of them who'd lived for countless years had been killed in the blink of an eye. This sudden scene was undoubtedly too terrifying, and it caused the fighting spirit of everyone present to suffer a blow, causing their expressions to change indeterminately. In the sky, Xia Ji, who was about to attack, was startled and said, "Give me another piece of melon." Battle Emperor Feng Ling grunted and subconsciously handed over a piece of melon. His heart was in turmoil. Just what kind of technique did Lin Sun use in that instant? Why was it so terrifying? It was as if time had stopped for a moment. On the battlefield, Lin Sun broke out of the encirclement like a trapped dragon rising into the sky. The light around him rumbled, and his aura grew stronger and stronger. His 5 clones charged together with him. Rumble. The void became chaotic, and the light surged. In the blink of an eye, a 5th-level Emperor Realm old monster's defenses were blasted open by a single punch, and his body was crushed by the sky-devouring abyss. Blood splattered everywhere as he died violently on the battlefield. This caused a wave of panic and exclamations on the battlefield. If it was before, they were still confident that they could exhaust Lin Sun to death by relying on their superiority in combat strength and numbers. But now, as the 7 antiques were killed, and as Lin Sun broke out of the encirclement, they couldn't help but panic. They felt threatened, and their fighting spirit showed signs of weakening. A young man who'd just stepped into the Emperor Realm was actually able to annihilate hundreds of Emperor Realm experts by himself, and he'd slaughtered those seniors to the point their faces turned pale with horror. If news of this were spread, who would dare to believe it? Everyone, if we don't work together, this kid will really overturn the heavens. Battle Emperor Zonglio of the primitive Tao court roared, and his voice shook the sky. His demeanor was wild, and his face was livid with rage and murderous intent. However, his words didn't have much of an effect. There was no one who wasn't afraid of death. Even emperors were no different from mortals when faced with fatal threats. Everyone, I'm willing to fight with my life on the line. I don't ask for all of you to put your lives on the line. I only ask that all of you attack with your full strength when I put my life on the line. If I still can't kill this kid, then even if I perish, I have nothing to say. The voice of the hidden flow battle monarch rang out again. It was sonorous and forceful, like the clashing of swords. As a 6th-rank Emperor Realm cultivator, the aura around him boiled as soon as he finished speaking. The terrifying aura of the Emperor Realm manifested a terrifying apocalyptic scene. Boom! He took a step forward and charged at Lin Sun with monstrous Taoist light. The surging Emperor Tao laws interweaved together, causing this expanse of space to collapse and sink into oblivion. How terrifying was a senior that possessed the might of lawlessness going all out. It was enough to kill ghosts and deities. The other emperors could tell that Battle Emperor Conglu was risking his life. At that moment, they all realized that this might be their last chance to kill Lin Sun. Kill! We can't let Brother Conglu risk his life alone. If we lose this battle, it's a small matter for us to lose face. Allowing this kid to live is the true calamity in our hearts. Kill! Instantly, the great emperors nearby attacked without hesitation, unleashing almost all of their cultivation and battle prowess. With Lin Sun as the center, the land in all directions was filled with these powerful emperors' powers. Every attack was imbued with different powers that could easily kill any 6th-rank Emperor Realm cultivator in this world. Young lady, the situation is dire. Battle Emperor Feng Ling cried out in alarm as he watched Lin Sun being swallowed by the countless energies. With a 6th-rank Emperor Realm cultivator leading the charge, dozens of other seniors joined forces and attacked with all their might. They were clearly planning to end this battle with their lives on the line. Young friend, Battle Emperor Feng Ling's eyes widened. He charged forward with all his might, but Xia Ji blocked his way. Even if he only has one drop of blood left, he can still come back to life. Furthermore, Lin Sun might not be defeated so easily. Her voice was as clear as the sound of nature. She was still holding a half-eaten melon in her hand and appeared very calm and composed. Kill. On the battlefield, a green light shot out from the sky and transformed into a stunning green rainbow. It was as if it was a flying sword in the hand of a peerless sword immortal. Boom! Tens of thousands of bolts of lightning fell from the sky as if they were being punished by the heavens. It was as if an ancient thunder god had hurled a divine spear in his hand. The entire sky swept across the sky and enveloped Lin Sun. Aside from that, all kinds of earth-shattering Tao arts appeared and flooded the sky like rain. In that instant, Lin Sun was in an unprecedented, desperate situation. He still stood there as if he had been scared out of his wits. Such terrifying power was indeed enough to make one despair. Battle Emperor Feng Ling couldn't help but close his eyes. Boom! Countless attacks landed on Lin Sun's body. In that instant, heaven and earth were filled with the terrifying Emperor Tao energy. The sun and moon dimmed as heaven and earth sank and the sky was easily torn to pieces. The surging and destructive power spread out and even pierced through the sky and struck the ground. The ground cracked open and a huge, bottomless pit with a radius of 10,000 feet appeared. Is he dead? Someone cried out in joy. Even a 6th-level Emperor Realm cultivator would perish under the combined might of so many emperors, let alone Lin Sun. Everyone looked up expectantly and saw an incredible scene. As the dust settled, a chaotic light floated above the pit. Amidst the roiling chaos, the grand scene that seemed like a furnace yet wasn't a furnace, like an abyss yet wasn't an abyss, faintly appeared. The surging laws of the grand Tao seethed within it, and it formed boundless, profound scenes. But Lin Sun's figure, which had been smashed to pieces, condensed little by little from the chaos and emerged. As Lin Sun's figure appeared, the nirvana, the original order energy of the starry sky and the sky of freedom pulsed with Lin Sun's breathing, as if it was resonating with him. It gave people the feeling that this world was controlled by Lin Sun, and he was the only supreme ruler of this world. Impossible. All of the old-timers stared with wide eyes, not daring to believe their eyes. Lin Sun had survived the attacks of so many powerful cultivators. Just what was his body made of? Could it be comparable to a supreme emperor weapon? Some people's pupils contracted as they recalled the scenes of Lin Sun's tribulation transcendence. He had been destroyed in the tribulation and the nirvana. It was as if he was undying and indestructible. He seems to have mastered the order energy of this world. An old-timer cried out in fear. Lin Sun's body was currently surrounded by an ancient and boundless aura, as if he was the ruler of all life. Even from afar, people couldn't help but tremble and want to kneel down. It looks like he has come into contact with and mastered some of the nirvana, the original order energy of the sky of freedom. Xia Ji murmured in surprise. As for Battle Emperor Feng Ling, he was completely dumbfounded. The order energy of the sky of freedom could be comprehended and mastered. This was simply too unbelievable. I have to thank all of you for helping me comprehend the nirvana, the mysteries of the order energy of the sky of freedom. At this moment, Lin Sun, who was shrouded in the chaotic light, finally raised his eyes. His eyes were like a bottomless abyss, with a primordial aura that seemed to be able to devour and dominate everything. This was the manifestation of his great Tao. Like a furnace or an abyss, All kinds of Taoist arts surged within it. Now, let me send you on your way. Lin Sun slowly spread his hands like a rock spreading its wings. Boom! Heaven and earth resonated, and the abyss around Lin Sun drew on the momentum of the void. Like a giant koan, he swallowed billions of stars and set off monstrous waves in the void with an unimaginably terrifying power. In the face of this invincible power, all spells and supernatural powers were as vulnerable as ants, unable to withstand a single blow. Hurry up and stop him. Battle Emperor Tsang Lu roared as his heart palpitated. A terrifying black divine flame rose from his body, enough to scorch the void, and turned into a monstrous pillar of fire that burned toward Lin Sun. Kill! All the other seniors suppressed the terror in their hearts, and they circulated their cultivation and innate divine abilities to the limit. Heaven and earth were filled with boundless divine light. Thunder and divine fire surged like the sea. With so many old-timers attacking at the same time, even the void seemed to be cracked. This part of the world boiled into an unbearably turbulent chaos, causing everything within 1,000 kilometers to collapse. This attack was even more terrifying than the one before, and it surged forward madly. Because it was not only Battle Emperor Tsang Lu who was fighting with his life, but everyone else. Not only did Lin Sun not die, but he also seemed to be in nirvana. Comprehending and controlling the power of nirvana belonged to nirvana. The power of the order of Mahesvara was enough to make anyone despair. Everyone knew that if Lin Sun could really use the power of the order, they would be like fish on a chopping board, at his mercy. At this moment, Lin Sun moved. With a slight movement of his body, he broke through the sound barrier in an instant, almost like a phantom detached from space. Even the naked eye couldn't capture his figure. Swish! Thousands of meters away, Lin Sun drew his fingers together, and a sword chi condensed from immortal gold streaked across the sky. An old-timer at the 6th level of the Emperor realm was caught off guard and let out an earth-shattering howl. His body was actually split into two from the middle. This horrible existence, who could restrain and shake Lin Sun before, had no room to resist at this time, like a fragile tofu. Whoosh, blood rained down, thick and scarlet. Kill him! Battle Emperor Tsang Lu roared, the corners of his eyes splitting open and blood flowing out. Black flames surged around him, turning into a raging dragon that roared towards Lin Sun, wanting to burn him to ashes. But when Lin Sun attacked, it was like a chaotic abyss, drawing upon the power of the world and resonating with his own power. It was as if he was the ruler of this world. How could he possibly shake him? Lin Sun's figure was impenetrable as he extinguished the rolling black flames. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of one of the old-timers and punched out. Boom! Chapter 2286. No one could stop Lin Sun's path. Powerful! Too powerful! Feng Ling yelled excitedly. His eyes were full of fanaticism, as if he had turned into a loyal fan. Ji ate the melon silently. She suddenly felt a little annoyed. It seemed that from now on, she could no longer protect Lin Sun as before. She didn't like this feeling at all. On the battlefield, Lin Sun was like a celestial emperor going on an expedition. His body was like a great abyss, engulfing the enemies in all directions. He charged at Hidden Flow Battle Emperor. Swish! A streak of sword chi flew across the sky. Sword Dao. 9 inches, eternal destruction. Rise! Hidden Flow Battle Emperor was indeed a ruthless senior who had fought for countless years. At that moment, he reacted and condensed 12 secret maps of the Great Way in front of him. Each secret map was engraved with a supreme Emperor's Way, which could withstand a full blow from 12 people of the same realm. But how terrifying was Lin Sun's current strength? At least in Nirvana, he could ignore all enemies. Boom! The 12 secret maps of the Great Way shone with dazzling Taoist light and broke apart from the middle. Like a rag cut by a pair of scissors, they collapsed and disappeared. Hidden Flow Battle Emperor's face showed a trace of confusion, disbelief, and extreme unwillingness. Then, a trace of blood appeared on his eyebrows. The trace of blood spread to his nose, chin, neck, chest, and then split into two halves in the air. A man at the 6th level of the Emperor realm of the primitive Taoist court, a lawless ancient land, was split in half by Lin Sun. Seeing this, the other old antiques were all enraged. Their attacks barely touched Lin Sun, but they were all crushed and destroyed by Lin Sun. If it went on like this, all of them would be killed by Lin Sun in a few seconds. Run! Some old monsters were scared out of their wits and turned around to escape. Previously, when those under the 3rd level of the Emperor realm fled, they were extremely disdainful, thinking that those old guys were too spineless. But now, they were also running away. This was like slapping themselves in the face, but they couldn't care less. At this moment, Lin Sun was simply too terrifying, and he was much stronger than before. The reason was that the quintessence energy of order that covered rebirth freedom was actually able to be controlled and utilized by him. This was no different from Shi Tiandi, who could control the forbidden power of order. Whoosh! Lin Sun's speed was so fast that he left a faint white mark in the void. He couldn't even react when the air was torn apart. This was the Tao of shifting that ignored the bindings of space. So. In the blink of an eye, another 4 old monsters were killed by Lin Sun. Every strike of his drew the power of heaven and earth in Zhou, and it was extremely powerful. It seemed that he was crushing all his opponents along the way, and he was invincible. Die! At this time, an old monster found an opportunity and slashed out with sword chi. The sword chi entwined with purple lightning sliced through the air. Lightning surged, and the sword chi turned into a lightning dragon that was dozens of feet long, seemingly unstoppable. Clang! Lin Sun didn't dodge, but directly took the blow with his fist. His fist, which was shining with chaotic aura, collided with the purple lightning sword chi, making a crisp sound of metal colliding. Under the old monster's shocked gaze, the strand of sword chi that he had spent his entire life's work on was shattered inch by inch. He was also sent flying by the tremendous force from his hand like a meteor. He was still halfway there when his body directly collapsed and exploded. He was utterly unable to endure such a terrifying attack. Run! In this world, this man already has the power of invincibility. We can't defeat him. Seeing this scene, those old monsters who were still hesitating were scared out of their wits. They also fled to the distance. It's useless. In this world, you can't escape. Lin Sun's indifferent voice was still resounding, and his figure had already disappeared. Whoosh! The void was torn apart, and the white mark pierced through the sky. With unparalleled power, he instantly rushed to the front of an old monster. The old monster only had time to scream and cast a seal, but was smashed by Lin Sun's palm, and even his soul was completely crushed. In the following time, Lin Sun's figure flickered frequently, and he launched a bloody chase. Some of the old monsters that he had caught up with were filled with murderous auras and raging flames. Some of them had turned into black rainbows, while others were fighting with their lives on the line. Each of their attacks carried a terrifying force that seemed capable of destroying everything in its path. Some burned their own cultivation to the extreme, and the light of Tao was like an erupting volcano. In order to survive, they almost fought with all their strength. Unfortunately, their attacks were obliterated before they touched Lin Sun, which was no different from hitting a stone with an egg. Puff, puff, puff. As expected, those old monsters who were caught were all killed on the spot. However, those old monsters fled in all directions. When Lin Sun wanted to chase them again, he would inevitably let others escape. At this time, Lin Sun took a deep breath and said indifferently with his dark eyes, "In this nirvana of freedom, where can you escape to?" Mastering the power of order in nirvana of freedom made Lin Sun like the ruler of this universe. The power he used just now was only the tip of the iceberg, and it was already enough to make those old monsters breathless. Devour. Lin Sun stood in the air and spread his arms, and an incomparably huge chaotic abyss suddenly appeared under the sky. At this moment, Lin Sun also displayed the ultimate combat strength after stepping into the Emperor realm in front of the world. His cultivation turned into a sky-devouring abyss, and no matter how many spells and divine powers you used, I will devour them all. Rumble. The universe shook, and the power of order that belonged to Nirvana of freedom seemed to have been completely awakened. It surged from all directions, and together with the chaotic abyss, it spread in all directions. Xia Ji and Battle Emperor Feng Ling both stopped eating, and their eyes flickered. This attack seemed to be in harmony with heaven and earth, and it was using the power of the universe for its own use. It gave people the feeling that the heavens were making a move. Oh no, retreat. Seeing the appearance of the abyss, all the figures that were fleeing in all directions turned pale with fright, and their souls almost flew out of their bodies. This heavenly power definitely didn't belong to Lin Sun, but now it was being controlled by him. No! A terrified scream sounded, and the figure of an old monster that was fleeing was instantly torn apart and devoured like a bug that had been swept into a storm. Following that, cries of terror, anger, and resentment resounded from all over the area. But in the blink of an eye, the owners of those figures were engulfed by the abyss, and their bodies exploded like papier-mâché. Their souls were completely destroyed. In just a few seconds, only Battle Emperor Feng Ling and Xia Ji were left. They stood to the side with melons in their hands, and they couldn't believe what they had just seen. It was as if the universe had fallen into an eternal night, and it was completely engulfed by the boundless abyss. Almost all the old monsters that were fleeing had been devoured. Lin Sun had defeated all the opponents in this world by himself. Everything was gone, and the world was empty. Terrifying torrents of energy wreaked havoc like hurricanes, and the void fell into endless chaos. Lin Sun's figure stood alone, and his body emitted boundless light and majestic imperial might. It was as if he had become the sole ruler of this world. Dead, they're all dead. Battle Emperor Feng Ling was shocked out of his wits. Among those old monsters, there were old men like Battle Emperor Tsang Lu who were at the 6th level of the Emperor realm. They were lawless and had been conquering the galaxy for many years. There was also Sword Emperor Cloudy Light who excelled in the art of the sword. These beings that came from the heavens of the starry sky were definitely overlords in this world, and they were existences that were close to the top of the ancient orthodoxies. But now they had all been devoured. This was something that Battle Emperor Feng Ling didn't expect. Whoosh! Chaotic aura filled the air, and Lin Sun's aura was withdrawn. The terrifying power of order that covered the entire sky also disappeared, and everything returned to silence. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun's face suddenly turned pale, and he couldn't help but cough out a mouthful of blood. His aura was showing signs of disorder. Lin Sun, Xia Ji rushed over immediately with a worried look in her eyes. Lin Sun had suddenly coughed up blood, and this caught her off guard. "I'm fine. I'll recover after some rest." Lin Sun took a deep breath and suppressed the turbulent aura within his body. Previously, after using the Forbidden Death technique, he had already expended a great deal of energy. Coupled with the continuous battles, he, who had just stepped into the Ju in Emperor realm, was a little overwhelmed. Later on, if it wasn't for the fact that he had comprehended and mastered the power of Order of Nirvana, this battle might not have ended so easily. The reason why he was injured was because he had expended too much energy when controlling and using the power of Order of Nirvana. Let's go and heal first. Xia Ji grabbed Lin Sun's hand and rushed toward the 10,000 Paths Great Wall with him. Lin Sun didn't refuse. Although some old monsters below the 4th stage of the Emperor realm had managed to escape in this bloody battle, they were no longer a threat. Yes, let's heal first. Battle Emperor Feng Ling hurriedly chased after them. What happened just now? It seems like the power of Order of Nirvana has been disturbed, and it has created a destructive power that engulfed the entire battlefield. Far away, The old monsters below the fourth stage of the Emperor realm, who had escaped long ago, all felt as if they had fallen into an icy cavern, and their expressions changed uncertainly. Although they were far away, they were still able to detect the disturbance in the power of order of nirvana immediately. It was also at that time that they saw the terrifying power of order transform into a giant abyss and engulf the entire battlefield in one fell swoop. Such a terrifying and bizarre scene caused all of them to be horrified and tremble in fear. Doesn't this mean that the survivors of Fengsuan Mountain and the others are all dead? Someone spoke with difficulty. This sentence caused everyone else to tremble again. They had also guessed this, but they didn't dare to believe it. Chapter 22:87. Although the heavens and earth had returned to silence, the air was still filled with the smell of blood and destruction. The old monsters below the fourth level of the Emperor realm gathered together and looked at each other. They could see the shock and bewilderment in each other's eyes. How could a chaotic battle that could be said to be filled with blood attract the power of the order of nirvana of freedom? It was too strange and abnormal. Let's wait a while. Perhaps someone will return alive, someone said uncertainly. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive. The old monsters' hearts were in turmoil. They couldn't calm down. They felt as if they were in a nightmare when they recalled everything that had happened. As Emperor Realm experts, they had experienced the vicissitudes of life and death. They were used to the impermanence of life and death. Ordinary slaughter and turmoil no longer bothered them. But everything that happened today was like an unprecedented heavy blow that shattered the confidence and dignity they were so proud of, and it overturned their understanding and imagination. No one would have thought that a young man who had just stepped into the Emperor realm would have such heaven-defying and abnormal combat strength. Even in the ancient records, there were no records of anyone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Lin Sun. This could be said to be the first of its kind in all of history. It was precisely because there had never been such a person in the past that they didn't think that their hundreds of Emperor Realm experts couldn't suppress a single person. Third-level Emperor Realm experts couldn't. Fourth-level Emperor Realm experts couldn't. Fifth or sixth-level Emperor Realm experts couldn't. Even besieging him wouldn't work. Not to mention emperors like them. Even the other old-timers or the ancestors of emperors would find it hard to believe what they were seeing. Previously, I thought we had the advantage in numbers, and we were all Emperor Realm existences that stood above the heavens. I felt ashamed when we ganged up on a young man. After all, we've lived for so many years. If we still bully a young man with numbers, it won't look good if this gets out. Suddenly, an old antique's voice was bitter. But who would have thought that even with numbers wouldn't work? His words caused many people's expressions to change indeterminately. There was an indescribable sense of defeat in their hearts. So long as news of today's battle were to spread out, all of them old fellows who'd bullied the weak yet were instead killed to the point of fleeing were bound to become the greatest joke in the world. Someone had a gloomy expression as he grumbled. If it wasn't for the fact that Heavenly Emperor sure reigned supreme on this ancient path of the starry sky, I wouldn't be willing to become enemies with Heart Mountain Forest. Sigh. It's useless to say anything now. Someone let out a long sigh. Humph. What? A single Lin Daoyuan scared you out of your wits. An emperor from the divine, illuminating ancient sect snorted. Someone immediately retorted, if you're not afraid, why are you running? Since you've escaped, don't make sarcastic remarks. Aren't you ashamed? The god illuminating ancient sect's emperor's face darkened with anger, but there was nothing he could say. There was nothing he could do. He couldn't deny the fact that they had escaped. In 100,000 years, the first person to become an emperor, the first person to obtain the heritage of an immortal supreme. If this Lin Daoyuan survives, I'm afraid his achievements in the future will surpass all the other descendants of Heart Mountain Forest and become the strongest person in Heart Mountain Forest. An old monster said in a low voice. One battle emperor was able to pierce through the sky and kill the previous nameless emperor. If there's another Lin Daoyuan who's even stronger than the battle emperor, will he be the supreme person on the ancient path of the starry sky in the future? His words made everyone's chests feel tight and their hearts heavy. The previous battle had made them all deeply aware of Lin Sun's strength. No one doubted that Lin Sun's achievements in the future would be inferior to the Battle Emperor. What they truly felt was the terrifying achievements that Lin Sun would obtain in the future on the Great Path. By that time, the entire starry sky would probably have to live under his shadow. Don't worry, even if he survives this time, Heavenly Emperor Shur will definitely be the first to come after him. Do you all think that Heavenly Emperor Shur can't handle a young man who just stepped into the Emperor realm? A middle-aged monk in a black robe from the Hidden Land realm said indifferently. The hearts of many old monsters eased a little. Lin Daoyuan was the only target that Heavenly Emperor Shur had issued a bounty on. If Heavenly Emperor Shur were to know that this guy had already obtained the foundation of an immortal sovereign, how could he remain indifferent? There were also people who sneered and refuted. What a joke. In the last game of chess, no one in the world thought that the wandering ghosts of Fengsuan Mountain could survive. But in the end, even the previous venerable Emperor Nameless was killed. And this time, so many of us joined forces. At the beginning of the battle, who thought that we couldn't kill Lin Daoyuan alone? In the end, some died and some fled. Under such circumstances, who still dares to believe that Heavenly Emperor Shur can really deal with Lin Daoyuan? Aren't you worried that you'll be slapped in the face again? His words were powerful and sonorous, as if he was venting the anger in his heart. Everyone's expression was gloomy. They came from different forces in the starry sky and belonged to different camps. Some forces were even hostile to each other. At such a time, it was already very difficult for them not to directly shed all pretense of cordiality and fight. It was normal for disputes to occur. Why hasn't anyone returned until now? Suddenly, someone asked, which suddenly made those old monsters react. Only then did they realize that after waiting for a long time, no one had returned alive. This made them all have a bad premonition. Could it be that all of them had really met with misfortune? Should we go and have a look? Someone suggested. Awkwardly, no one answered. Many old monsters even rolled their eyes. Go and have a look? Don't you think you've lived long enough? Boom! The world was turned upside down. The power of order that had originally returned to silence suddenly became turbulent at this moment. This scene immediately made those Emperor Realm figures restless. They looked around in surprise, not understanding what had happened. On the Great Wall, Lin Sun, who had just begun to meditate to recover from his injuries, was also alarmed. He sensed with his heart and immediately understood what had happened. He furrowed his brows and couldn't help but sigh. Who would have thought that the remaining old dogs would have a chance to live? Xia Ji and Battle God Feng Ling both faltered, but they soon understood what had happened. They heard an emotionless voice reverberate between heaven and earth. The path of nirvana has been obtained by someone. From now on, all of you may leave. The voice reverberated throughout heaven and earth. Those panicking old monsters were all relieved, as if they had heard the most beautiful voice in the world. It was finally over. If it was possible, they would have escaped from this place as soon as possible and never wanted to return. What path of nirvana? What immortal supremacy? What were they more important than their own lives? Whoosh! A gigantic vortex gate materialized in the air. Go! Those Emperor Realm old monsters who had already lost their will to fight and only wanted to live charged forward at the first moment. They fought to be the first to leave, creating a spectacular scene. On the Great Wall, Xia Ji asked, "Should we go and kill some of them?" Lin Sun shook his head. "It's not worth it to kill some useless trash. I should wait until I recover from my injuries and pay a visit to the sects behind them." Battle God Feng Ling's heart shuddered. Visit? He was clearly going to destroy their sects. Battle God Feng Ling couldn't help but break out in cold sweat for those ancient sects when he thought back to Lin Sun's peerless might in battle. All right. Xia Ji's reply was very natural, as if she could trust and accept any decision Lin Sun made unconditionally. As she spoke, she withdrew a large spirit melon that was green like jade, and her fingers were like blades as she instantly sliced it into neat and tidy pieces before starting to enjoy it. The melon was sweet and refreshing, and its flesh was juicy and juicy. Its texture was definitely top-notch, and Xia Ji had a special liking for it. This girl really doesn't forget to eat melons no matter what, Battle God Feng Ling grumbled at his heart, but he still wore a smile on his face. Let me have a taste as well. This melon is truly unique and can be said to be the best in the world. At the same time, in the various worlds of reincarnation, all the cultivators who had awakened their consciousness were carried away by a strange power of order and left the world they were in. Jintian Xianyue, Xian Join, Ling Kezi, and the others were all taken away one after another. As for the cultivators who had yet to awaken their consciousness, they were selectively forgotten in the worlds of reincarnation. As for whether they would be lost in the worlds of reincarnation forever, or whether they would have a chance to walk out of reincarnation, that would depend on their own luck. It's over just like that? It's only been 7 years. Xian Join and the others returned to the nirvana of freedom, where they had come from. There was an ancient palace standing in the distance. When the cultivators below the Emperor stage returned, they received the news that the nirvana path had ended, and they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Xian Join looked around and asked quickly, "Some unforeseen event must have happened. Where's Lin's son? Why didn't he appear?" Young master must have left the worlds of reincarnation long ago, unlike us. We spent 7 years and still couldn't walk out of reincarnation. In the end, we were forcibly brought out. Jean Tian Xuanyue's clear eyes were suffused with a complicated expression, and her peerlessly beautiful face was filled with a sense of loss because she'd missed a chance. This cycle of reincarnation was very miraculous. I recultivated my path towards the Tao, repaired my flaws, and perfected myself. It allowed me to obtain great benefits. I believe it won't be long before I'll be able to welcome the great critical factor to attain the Tao and become an emperor. Ling Kezi had a satisfied expression, and he wasn't reluctant at all. He was a Buddhist cultivator, and he placed great emphasis on leaving it up to fate. When she spoke up to hear, Xian Join and Jin Tian Xianyuan nodded in unison. To them, the tempering within the cycles of reincarnation this time wasn't inferior to rebirth after rebirth, and they'd obtained unexpected benefits. In the outside world, this was absolutely a supreme fortune that could only be chanced upon by luck. It wasn't just them. Numerous other cultivators who'd entered the cycle of reincarnation like them had obtained various gains as well. This was the nirvana of freedom. There is only a single path to become an eternal exalt, but so long as everyone tempered within it, then they would be able to obtain the opportunity to attain rebirth. Chapter 2288. Young friend, is it time for us to leave? Battle God Feng Ling asked. He was worried that he would never be able to leave the nirvana heavens if he missed this opportunity. Lin Sun smiled. Brother, just stay here. Furthermore, if you leave now, the major forces in the starry heavens will definitely come after you. Battle God Feng Ling faltered before a desolate expression appeared on his face. I'm not afraid of death, but I didn't expect my fellow sect members to leave me in the lurch. He recalled the scene when he was isolated and helpless in battle, and his fellow disciples just stood by and watched without lifting a finger. Battle God Feng Ling laughed self-deprecatingly. I've already left the yellow celestial court anyway. It's not bad to be all alone. Lin Sun didn't try to comfort him. Let's leave this place after I recover. A 4th-level martial emperor had already experienced all kinds of trials and tribulations. Battle God Feng Ling would definitely make the most suitable choice for him. Battle God Feng Ling nodded. I wonder how Lady Xianyue and the others are doing. Lin Sun thought to himself. He calmly sensed the fluctuations of order in the nirvana heavens. Unfortunately, his control over the power of order was limited, so he couldn't sense everything in this world. Naturally, he didn't know that Xianyue and the others had already walked out of reincarnation and were about to leave this world. 2 hours later. Let's go. The whirlpool door is about to disappear. It's pointless to wait any longer. Xian Jiuyin glanced at Xianyue. If you really want to see Lin Sun again, just come home with me. Come home with you? Jean Tian Xuanyue's beautiful eyes widened in anger. Don't misunderstand. I wouldn't dare to steal a woman from that savage Lin Sun, even if I ate a bear's heart or a leopard's gall. Xianjuin hurriedly told her about his father's invitation to the Xian clan and made it clear that Lin Sun had already agreed. Tui, Jean Tian Xuanyue's peerlessly beautiful face that was like a painting blushed, and she spat. Who's young master's woman? Xianjuin and Ling Kezi looked at each other and murmured inwardly. Women, do you really think men are blind? Let's go. Jean Tian Xianyue took the lead and walked towards the whirlpool door. Her clothes were as white as snow, and she looked like a celestial. As expected of the White Emperor Star System's #1 beauty. Such elegance, charm, and beauty are not inferior to my mother-in-law. Xianjuin sighed with admiration in his heart. It's just a pity that Brother Lin seems to have never understood a beauty's intentions. In the future, you better not end up in a situation where you yearn for something otherwise. That would truly be a pity. The group quickly left the nirvana of freedom. On the Great Wall, Lin Sun sat cross-legged and meditated. The beads containing the pure law of order were refined by him one by one and integrated into his cultivation. These beads were the rewards he had obtained from killing the alien beasts. Boom! Numerous strands of auspicious rays of light rained down from his body, while a myriad of strands of divine radiance descended, and they formed all sorts of miraculous and gorgeous scenes. When looked at from afar, he was like a supreme god that possessed the grand Tao. His entire body glowed, and the aura his entire body emanated faintly carried a supreme, lofty, and boundlessly supreme aura. After stepping into the Ju Emperor realm, Lin Sun was indeed completely different from before. Every move he made had the momentum to oppress the sky and overlook the mountains and rivers. Even a casual breath could cause the resonance of the Great Way and heaven and earth. As time went by, Lin Sun's figure was bathed in the endless, brilliant rain of light, as if he was sitting in a sacred, pure land, with intertwining lights and flowing divine brilliance. And in his body, a splendid, brilliant, and boundless world was also running. This was the Life Emperor realm, and the world was constructed by the cultivation he had mastered. Reflected in the world, it turned into the sky and the earth, the sun and the moon, the mountains and rivers, the rotation of the 4 seasons, and the changes of all things. If it were not for the lack of time and the breath of life, this Life Emperor realm would be no different from a real world. In reality, the 9th level of the Emperor realm was tempering this Life Emperor realm. This was the root of the Emperor realm, and the more magnificent and sturdy the Life Emperor realm was, the more powerful the power it could release. Lin Sun's natal imperial realm revealed an extreme scene of boundlessly magnificent, and if other emperors were to see it, their jaws would definitely drop to the ground from shock. The reason was that an ordinary first-level Emperor Realm cultivator could never possess a Life Emperor Realm like this. Compared to it, it was like a firefly competing with the sun and moon. Even great Emperor Ju Ing of the Archean era could not have such a peerless aura. This was the great way that Lin Sun pursued. In the past, present, and future, there was only one Tao, and this was also the reason why Lin Sun was able to surpass a major cultivation level and defeat a 6th-level Emperor Realm cultivator. Battle Emperor Feng Ling was also cultivating in silence. Xie Ji was the only one who was sleeping. Just like before, she ate and slept, slept and ate. Her great way had always been transformed in silence and reborn in the cycle of reincarnation. She was completely different from the others. Now, in the nirvana of freedom, apart from those cultivators who had yet to awaken in the world of samsara, the 3 of them were the only ones left. In the world of darkness. It's over. Zhong Xiu's eyes were filled with gratification as he stood on the peak of a precipitous mountain. There was also a hint of indescribable sadness and frustration. Although he couldn't see the battle that had taken place in the depths of the galaxy, he could feel the appearance of his master's intent. After waiting for so long, he could finally hear the sound of flowers blooming today. So Lin Sun has already embarked on the path to becoming an immortal sovereign? She asked from the side. His robes fluttered in the wind, and his figure was like an illusion. Of course. Zhongqiu's answer was extremely firm, and his eyes were filled with pride. Little junior brother is indeed slightly stronger than us senior brothers and senior sisters. His achievements in the future are destined to surpass mine and the other senior brothers and junior brothers. She glanced at him and said, "You're finally willing to admit that he's stronger than you." Zhongqiu laughed. "I only said that he's stronger than me back then. As for now, if he wants to catch up to me, the gap is too big." Speaking of this, he took a deep breath and turned his head to ask she, "Will you continue to travel with him in the future?" She thought for a while and said, "I need to find my lost memories in the heaven-accessing secret realm." Zhongqiu grunted in agreement. The atmosphere became a little gloomy. She didn't speak either. She had never been a person who liked to talk. In this aspect, she was similar to Zhongqiu. After a long time, Zhongqiu said, "That's good. With you around, at least junior brother won't be bullied." She couldn't help but sigh. "I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for me to help him in the future. Who knows? I might even need his help." In the past, Lin Sun might have been regarded as a junior who needed protection. However, after he became an emperor, things were completely different. In the starry heavens, he could be called a supreme authority, a legend on the road to becoming a great emperor. He might be very young, but who would dare to regard him as a junior? In the future, those below the emperor realm would probably have to call him senior. The legend of the past will eventually fade and wither in front of him. In the future, he will only go further and further on the great Tao, Zhongqiu said slowly. Only he knew how supreme the path of the eternal exalt was. Even if it was placed on the other side of the starry sky, there weren't many who could be called exalted on this path. Otherwise, this nirvana of freedom's trial would not have attracted the attacks of so many terrifying figures from the starry heavens. She said, "The nirvana of freedom's end. I'm afraid Emperor Shi Tiandi will return soon. It's too late for him to return." Zhongqiu's eyes flashed with coldness. "It won't take long for me to go and meet that old thing personally." "How long?" she asked. "I'm just waiting for an opportunity." Zhongqiu's eyes were deep. He had waited for the dark world for countless years and missed that game of chess. This time, he wouldn't miss it again. On this day, the nirvana of freedom's end, which attracted the attention of all the major forces on the starry heaven's ancient path, was followed by a series of explosive news. Lin Sun, the successor of Mind and Heart Mountain, has become an emperor in Juzi. He is the first person to set foot on the Juzi Emperor's path in the past 100,000 years. Mind and Heart Mountain appeared and defeated many terrifying figures from the other side of the starry heavens, helping Lin Sun to obtain the immortal supreme path. When Lin Sun became an emperor, conflicts broke out with other emperors and set off a bloody war of emperors. He killed 26 people at the first level of Emperor Realm, 15 at the second level, 8 at the third level, and 5 at the fourth level. The Order of Nirvana of Freedom's order is in a strange turmoil, which is comparable to a great tribulation. All the experts in the 5th and 6th level of the Emperor Realm disappeared. No one knows whether Lin Sun will survive the tribulation. The news spread to the Dark World one after another, causing a great sensation. Then, the news spread to the starry heavens at an incredible speed, setting off an unprecedented uproar. Lin Sun, a man who was ordered to be killed by heavenly monarch Shi Tiandi, the most wanted criminal in the universe, had become a monarch at the peak of Nirvana heaven. He had obtained the fortune of an immortal exalt under the eyes of many monarchs, and he had killed many monarchs alone. Every piece of news was earth-shattering. When they were spread out together, it was like thunder exploding in every world in the starry heavens. And Lin Sun had become the most dazzling person in the heavens, a legendary, peerless emperor. While the commotion and discussion were still sweeping across the heavens like a landslide and a tsunami, an order from the Copper Sparrow Tower Master spread to all the places covered by the Copper Sparrow Tower. From today on, all the forces of the Copper Sparrow Tower will go into hiding. Without orders, no one is allowed to walk in the world as the Copper Sparrow Tower. Then, from this day on, all the forces under the command of the Copper Sparrow Tower began to withdraw and disappear. But compared to the great sensation caused by Lin Sun, the disappearance and silence of the forces of the Copper Sparrow Tower, one of the three dark giants, did not attract much attention. Everything was carried out in silence. Chapter 2289. Primordial World, Primitive Tao Court. The peak of the majestic, true Void Mountain was the core of the prehistoric Tao Court. How is this possible? Headmaster Lu Hongtian was stunned. He had just received the news from the Dark World and felt like he was struck by lightning. He almost lost control of his mind. Battle Emperor Zonglio, a 6th-level emperor and Lu Hongtian's senior brother, was suspected to have died in Nirvana. The atmosphere in the hall was oppressive. The higher-ups of the primitive Tao court looked gloomy. Everyone's heart was in turmoil. They couldn't accept it either. This time, the primitive Tao court sent a total of 9 emperors to Nirvana of freedom, but 6 of them did not return, including Battle Emperor Zonglu, who was a 6th-tier emperor, 2 5th and 3 4th-tier emperors. The 3 who made it out alive were all in the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. This was a heavy loss. After all, the path to the other side of the starry sky had reappeared in the world after that world match, and it allowed numerous Emperor Realm old fellows to have the opportunity to head there. At that time, some old antiques from the primitive Tao court also left. There were only about 20 old emperors left, but now they had lost 6 of them. This was a heavy blow. It was hard to accept. The primitive Tao court was one of the 6 great Tao courts. It was powerful and ancient, but now it had suffered such a heavy loss. It was obvious that the losses suffered by those powers that participated in the Nirvana of freedom were bound to be huge. A wanted survivor of Mount Heart is becoming a great emperor in Nirvana and obtaining the path to the immortal sovereign. Heaven is blind. Lu Hongtian was furious. His face was pale. He hadn't lost control of himself like this for many years. Sectmaster, this kid has already matured. According to the information we received, he can go against a 6th-level martial emperor when he just stepped into the martial emperor realm. If he's still alive, he's bound to be a great threat to us. Someone said in a low voice. From the news from the Dark World, no one dared to say whether Lin Sun was dead or alive. This was what worried them. If he is alive, doesn't that mean senior brother Zonglio has a chance to be alive? Someone could not help but ask. Someone immediately said, "It's hard to say." Lin Sun was able to obtain the fortune of the Immortal Supreme. How could he be erased by Nirvana? But senior brother Tsong Lu and the rest. He didn't finish his sentence, but everyone knew what it meant. Headmaster, no matter what, we should make a plan in advance. Given the hatred between us and Fonsun Mountain, and the fact that we've acted against Lin Sun many times over the years, if he walks out of the Nirvana of freedom alive, he will definitely not let us off. Someone said worriedly. The information that came from that place said that this kid once said in Rebirth of Freedom that he would one day ascend to the starry sky and pay a visit to all of his enemies. This made everyone's hearts shake. A young man who had stepped into the Emperor realm and had the potential to become an undying being. If he decided to take revenge, the consequences would be dire. What a joke. There are many orthodoxies in the starry skies. He's just a remnant of Mount Fongsuan. Does he really think that he can do whatever he wants after stepping into the Judi realm? Someone sneered. Alas, who would dare believe that the tiny ant that we didn't take seriously all those years ago actually possesses the potential to threaten us now? Someone's voice was full of sadness. This was really hard to accept. In the past, although Lin Sun was famous in the starry sky, which ancient orthodoxy would really pay attention to him. Who would have thought that such a little thing would one day threaten them? Don't forget, Emperor Shi Tiandi is still here. Suddenly, someone said, Lin Sun is wanted by Emperor Shi Tiandi. If Emperor Shi Tiandi knew that Lin Sun had risen to such a level, how could he stand by and do nothing? These words made everyone's eyes light up. Finally, Lu Hongtian took a deep breath and made a decision. We can't pin all our hopes on Emperor Shi Tiandi. From today on, we'll try our best to find out the news related to Lin Sun. If he's dead, I want to know where he died. If he's alive, will keep an eye on his every move. On this day, the primitive Taoist court was shocked. Like the primitive Taoist court, Qianquan, Panwu, demons, Xianhuang, and other ancient Taoist courts, the 10 war clans and some primordial emperor clans also received the news one after another. For a while, they were all shocked. There was disbelief, resentment, panic, and depression. Lin Sun, this name, which had long been familiar to them, now seemed to have a heart-palpitating shadow over every major force. As time went by, the entire starry sky ancient path was completely boiling. Almost every world and every city was talking about the same name. Daoyuan Emperor Lin Sun, a legend like the sun, shining alone in the starry sky. It's only been a few years, but he's already set foot on the Ju-ing Emperor realm. Good. Zihang Star Zone, Daiyu World, Yu Clan. When he heard the news about Lin Sun, Yu Qingyang Saber Emperor couldn't help laughing, his voice shaking the sky. When Lin Sun first entered the starry sky ancient path, Yu Qingyang had been blessed by Yu Qingyang and gave Lin Sun the 9 cauldrons world-suppressing scripture. My little friend, I don't expect you to repay me in the future. I just hope that one day you can come back to see me and let me appreciate the elegance of Ju-ing Emperor. Yu Qingyang sighed. Peerless Emperor. The weight of these 4 words overwhelmed how many emperors in the past and present. White Emperor Star Zone, Golden Heaven World. Primordial Imperial Clan, Jintian Clan. When the news about Nirvana Heaven spread, everyone in the Jintian clan was shocked. However, everyone had a strange expression on their faces, and the atmosphere was strange. The reason was that they had long known that the #1 beauty of the White Monarch star field, Jin Tianxianyue, the leader of the younger generation of the Jintian clan, had become Lin Dayuan's Dao servant. This was unacceptable to the entire clan. Many even felt humiliated. If it weren't for Sword Emperor Fufeng, the higher-ups of the Jintian clan would have gone to Lin Sun to settle the score and bring Jintian Xianyue back. Especially 7 years ago, when they learned that Jintian Xianyue would rather give up her surname and sever ties with the clan in order to stay by Lin Sun's side, the entire clan was enraged. Many clamored to capture Jintian Xianyue and punish her severely. But who would have thought that after only 7 years, the descendant of Mount Fongsuan that they didn't think highly of would become a martial monarch and obtain the immortal supremacy? Furthermore, he had single-handedly defeated a group of Emperor Realm monsters from the starry heavens. Now, he was the famous Dao Yuan monarch, a peerless martial monarch that even the ancient orthodoxies were wary of. This shocked the entire Jintian clan. At the same time, they couldn't help but feel strange and subtle emotions. Those clamoring to capture Jintian Xianyue and punish her were silenced. Who had the guts to snatch someone by Dao Yuan monarch's side? Even if that person was a direct descendant of the Jintian clan, Xianyue isn't young anymore. It's time for her to pursue her own Dao. From now on, no one is allowed to slander and attack Xianyue behind her back. On this day, the Jintian clan's clan master issued an order. His attitude was firm, and no one in the clan dared to object. After Sword Emperor Fufeng learned of this, he couldn't help but think, if Heavenly Monarchshire was defeated in the future, wouldn't Lin Sun be the ruler of the galaxy, Ancient Road? At that time, with the relationship between Xianyue and Lin Sun, the status of the Jintian clan would also rise. Thinking of this, Sword Emperor Fufeng couldn't help but feel excited. But he quickly calmed down because he knew that as long as Heavenly Monarchshire was alive, he was destined to be the biggest threat to Lin Sun. The Galaxy Ancient Road had 9 major starfields. Each starfield had many worlds of different sizes. It was incomparably vast and boundless. In these worlds, there were geniuses who could shine brilliantly in a city, some could dominate a region, and some could reign supreme in a world, and some could be the best in a starfield. There were countless people like this on the boundless ancient path of the starry sky. They were all geniuses of their respective worlds and domains. But when placed in the entire world, they seemed insignificant. Since the ancient times, those who were able to spread their names throughout the starry ancient path were extremely rare existences. After all, The galaxy ancient road was too big. But recently, the name of Tao Abyss Emperor Lin Sun had spread across every world, every territory, and every city of the galaxy ancient road. This was the influence of becoming an emperor at the peak and obtaining the immortal supreme fortune in Nirvana heaven. This was a supreme legend created by Lin Sun alone. Since ancient times, only one person had heard of it. When they learned of this news, Xian Jiuyin, Xian Yue, and Ling Kezi felt like they were in a dream. It took them a long time to believe all this, and their emotions were also extremely agitated. As for Mi Wuya, Ling Hongzhuang, and the others who used to be on the same level as Lin Sun, they were all shocked, speechless. Not to mention jealousy, they didn't even have the heart to envy. They only felt an indescribable bitterness and helplessness. To be a genius of the same generation as Lin Sun is destined to be the most unfortunate thing since ancient times. Many people sighed with emotion. Right now, Lin Sun had surpassed the dazzling figures of the younger generation. In the future, as long as he was alive, with his terrifying foundation and potential, he was destined to surpass those supreme figures of the older generation. In other words, since the ancient times until now, all the cultivators in the universe who were at the same realm of cultivation as him were bound to be overshadowed by his brilliance. Similarly, after all the cultivators in the galaxy ancient road calmed down, they all thought of a question at the same time. Was Tao Abyss Emperor Lin Sun still alive? Chapter 2290. Nirvana? The Sky of Freedom. On the Great Wall, as Lin Sun breathed in and out, the stars in the distance, the Great Wall beneath him, and the Nirvana behind him. The Sky of Freedom produced a unique and powerful rhythm. Boom, boom, boom. Just the rhythm alone was like the thunder of the heavenly Tao, shaking the void and spreading in all directions. At the same time, Lin Sun's body glowed brilliantly, and the strange power of order rolled like a tide. He was like the ruler of the heavens, exuding supreme might. What is Lin Sun doing? Battle Monarch Feng Ling was already standing far away. He was circulating all the energy in his body in order to resist and dissolve the omnipresent, terrifying pressure. It had already been 10 days. Lin Sun had been meditating this entire time, and the aura around him had become more and more terrifying. He is comprehending and controlling the power of order of this world. Xia Zhi's clothes fluttered in the wind, and her voice was as melodious as the sound of nature. Isn't planning to refine this world, is he? Battle Monarch Feng Ling's heart trembled, and he drew in a sharp breath. The Sky of Freedom was formed from the power of order of the starry sky. If the Nirvana was refined by the Sky of Freedom, wouldn't it be the same as refining the power of order of the starry sky? Xia Zhi thought about it and said, the fact that he can do this should have something to do with the immortal supremacy. Her guess was correct. The immemorial tribulation of oblivion and a single lotus bloomed. Since the ancient times until now, an eternal path to exalt had finally appeared, so it was naturally impossible for it to be so simple. When Lin Sun obtained the fortune of the immortal supremacy path, he also became the Nirvana, the only lotus in the Sky of Freedom. As for the Nirvana, the power of order of the Sky of Freedom was like the nourishment of the lotus, and it could be absorbed and controlled by Lin Sun in the first place. In these 10 days, Lin Sun's injuries and physical strength had already recovered, and his martial emperor cultivation had also been consolidated. What he was doing now was to completely control the Nirvana, the power of order of the Sky of Freedom. Battle Monarch Feng Ling suddenly exclaimed, if he can really do this, doesn't that mean he is no different from Shi Tiandi who can control the forbidden power of order? This was truly shocking. At the same time, the entire Nirvana appeared in Lin Sun's mind. The scene of the realm of freedom. The entire world was composed of the reincarnation Tao Palace, the Great Wall of 10,000 paths, and the undying wasteland. There was no need to mention the Great Wall. The everlasting wasteland was the place where Lin Sun had fought with the group of emperors 10 days ago. It was about the size of a small world and was constructed from the order of the starry sky. In Nirvana, The core of the Sky of Freedom was the reincarnation Tao Palace. After entering this Taoist palace, one could enter the world of samsara, which was divided into 8 realms: Jinwu, Gang Spirit, Spirit Sea, Cave, Reincarnation Development, King Realm, Sage Realm, and Quasi-Emperor. It was called the world of samsara, yet it was actually not much different from the various worlds on the ancient paths in the starry sky. The energy of the order of time and the fluctuations of life flowed within it. It was precisely because of the existence of time and life that the world of reincarnation was fundamentally different from the natal emperor realm of a martial emperor. It was also at this moment that Lin Sun finally dared to confirm that those lives distributed in the world of samsara were not illusions, but real existences. Unfortunately, Lin Sun was about to reach nirvana. The order energy of the Sky of Freedom had been refined, but was unable to comprehend the core mysteries of the samsara Tao Palace. The reason was very simple. The order of samsara involved the energy of time and life. It was the same as Lin Sun's forbidden passing, which also involved the order of time. However, it could only be used by Lin Sun and could not be used to pry into the core mysteries contained within. This was known as knowing the how, but not knowing the why. No wonder Emperor Shi Tiandi is said to be like the ruler of all heavens in the starry sky. Under the cover of the forbidden order energy he controls, he is equivalent to the master of that world. Lin Sun was enlightened. Similarly, I was able to kill those old monsters in the 5th and 6th level of the martial emperor realm a few days ago, because I have mastered the power of the nirvana. The order energy of the Sky of Freedom. In this world, I can also act on behalf of heaven and enforce justice on behalf of heaven. Enforce justice on behalf of heaven. For simple words, but the power contained in them was enough to make any cultivator in this world terrified. After a long time, Lin Sun opened his eyes from the enlightenment, and the endless rain of light that lingered around him became silent and restrained within his body. He stood up, his clothes neat and tidy, his aura indifferent, and his figure outstanding. There was no longer that supreme and terrifying martial emperor aura. The great Tao is the simplest, returning to simplicity. Battle Emperor Feng Ling sighed with emotion. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, who would have thought that this young man in front of him was the first terrifying existence to become a martial emperor in the last 100,000 years? Lin Sun, when are we leaving? Xia Ji asked. Without fighting and killing, she only had to eat and sleep these days, which was quite boring. Wait a moment, Lin Sun said, and took a step forward, and his figure disappeared. True martial world. In the imperial palace of the great Qin dynasty, Qian Yulio, dressed in a lavender dress, failed to break through the realm again, and a touch of confusion appeared on her delicate oval face. When Su Qinghan left, she had given her a cultivation method related to breaking through the martial realm and cultivating to the gang spirit realm. For the past 7 years, she had been trying to break through the realm, but in return, she had failed thousands of times. The barrier of true martial was like a natural mode, and she was about to collapse. Why don't you try again? Suddenly, a voice sounded in Qian Yulio's almost desperate heart, making her sit up as if she had been electrocuted, and her pretty face lit up with amazing brilliance. Child, is that you? Qian Yulio's voice was trembling with excitement. After 7 years, she finally heard that familiar voice again. However, no one answered. The excitement on Qian Yulio's face suddenly dissipated a lot. Looking at the empty palace, she couldn't help laughing at herself. It turned out to be an illusion. Fine, then I'll try again. After a long time, she regained her spirit, operated her cultivation, and began to try to break through the realm again. Boom! Suddenly, it was as if a shackle within her body had been broken, and before Qian Yulio could react in time, the spirit energy in her body rumbled and surged within her body like a torrent, and an indescribably wonderful feeling surged into her heart. At this moment, it was as if a door to a whole new world had opened in front of her, and Qian Yulio couldn't help but be stunned. Did she succeed? After a long time, she felt a pond of spiritual power emerging in her body and the new mystery of the gang's spirit realm. Finally, she dared to confirm that she had broken through the realm. All this happened so abruptly, as if it didn't take much effort at all. But Qian Yulio seemed to realize something, and she suddenly stood up and pushed open the door of the palace. The huge imperial palace came into view, and there was no figure in front of the hall. But Qian Yulio saw a letter floating down from the crack of the door. Holding it in her hand, she forced herself to restrain the surging emotions in her heart and began to read. The world is very big, and the path of cultivation is very long. From today onwards, the beautiful mountains and rivers and the great way are no longer shackles. I look forward to the day when you walk out of the world of samsara. Signed, Lin Daoyuan. Sure enough, it's him. Qian Yulio clenched the letter in her hand tightly, and her beautiful eyes bloomed with brilliant splendor. It turns out that he's called Lin Daoyuan. A smile quietly appeared on the corners of her mouth, and Qian Yulio took a deep breath and carefully put away the letter. Then, she said softly to the empty world, "Thank you, child Lin." Above the sky, Lin Sun smiled and turned to leave. On this day, the martial mountain of the true martial world, the spirit gang lake of the spirit gang world, the spirit sea of the spirit sea world, and the glittering paradise of the paradise world, in the 8 realms of samsara, all the forbidden areas covered by the power of order disappeared from those different worlds. On this day, there was a wonderful communication between the 8 realms. Anyone who broke through the realm would be moved to a higher level world to cultivate. On this day, a strange connection was formed between the 8 worlds. Anyone who broke through would be transported to a higher level world to cultivate. For example, those who broke through the realm in the true martial world would be moved to the spirit gang world, and so on. All the practitioners distributed in the 8 realms were shocked, overjoyed, excited, and cheered. This day was also called the first day of the new era of cultivation in the 8 realms. Also on this day, the practitioners who hadn't awakened in the world of samsara would never be able to awaken in this life. Of course, this was Lin Sun's doing. This world of samsara was already under his control, so he naturally wouldn't allow an anomaly to appear. We can go. Lin Sun returned to the Great Wall of 10,000 Paths and said with a smile. Immediately, he drew a line with his fingers and a vortex door appeared. Then, he walked out with Xia Ji and Battle Emperor Fengling. As Lin Sun left, the enormous nirvana, freedom of heaven, suddenly turned into a lotus-shaped mark and appeared in the lines on Lin Sun's palm before disappearing. Feeling the nirvana, Lin Sun couldn't help but sigh in his heart. 7 years ago, he was a great perfection quasi-emperor and was still a junior in the eyes of the old monsters in the emperor realm. 7 years later, he was already a peerless great emperor with the foundation of the immortal supreme and the power of nirvana, the order of freedom of heaven. From now on, Lin Sun's great Tao could compete with the emperors in the past and present. He's back, he's back. In the dark, the eyes of the drunkard battle Emperor Sky Destruction lit up when he saw Lin Sun's figure walking over from the distant sky. This kid really didn't die. I knew it. Good people don't live long, but scourges live for 1,000 years. Big Yellow grinned from the side. Big Yellow, watch your words. Young Master Lin is now the famous Tao Abyss Emperor, a true, peerless great emperor. Qing Ying held the blood-red umbrella and spoke unhurriedly. Her graceful figure revealed a soul-stirring and enchanting beauty. They had already waited here for many days. Now that Lin Sun had finally walked out alive, they all secretly heaved a sigh of relief. One had to know that according to the rumors in the outside world, Lin Sun's situation was still unknown. Master is here too. Big Yellow's ears twitched, and he turned around to see Zhong Qiu's majestic figure appear out of thin air. He let out a howl and rushed forward excitedly. He stretched out his head and wanted to rub against his master's leg, just like he had done countless times in the past. However, in the next moment, he was kicked out by Zhong Qiu. Don't block my way. Bam! Big Yellow fell flat on his face and was dumbfounded. The drunkard and Qing Ying couldn't help but laugh. Chapter 2291. Being laughed at, Goldie's face darkened. He bared his teeth and wanted to bite Lin's son. At that moment, Zhong Xiu suddenly said, "Junior brother, take this." Boom. Whether Lin's son agreed or not, he punched out with a simple, direct, and unparalleled momentum. It did not cause any ripples in the void. In reality, the strength of this punch had been condensed to the extreme a long time ago, and it had attained an inconceivable level. In Lin Sun's eyes, this punch was invisible, powerful, and indescribable. It seemed to be simple, yet it existed everywhere. The soul, state of mind, body, and even every single thought was enveloped by this punch. This was undoubtedly extremely terrifying. But Lin Sun didn't dodge. He took a deep breath and punched out. His punch was chaotic and extremely simple. At this instant, Xia Ji, Battle God Feng Ling, the drunkard De Huang, Qing Ying, and the others all held their breaths as their attention was drawn to this scene. A strange scene appeared. When the two fists collided, there was no sound and no ripples were created. There was also no earth-shattering rumble. But Lin Sun's figure shook slightly, and he couldn't help but be surprised. Great sound desolate. In the distance, Zhong Qiu took a few steps back. He seemed to be at a disadvantage, but he laughed loudly. Strictly speaking, it should be called an invisible elephant. Senior brother, thank you for letting me win. Lin Sun's figure floated to the ground and cupped his hands with a smile. Zhong Qiu stepped forward, patted Lin Sun on the shoulder, and said with emotion, "My previous punch contained the power of the first level of the Emperor Realm. Obviously, if I were at the first level of the Emperor Realm, I wouldn't be as powerful as you. Let's go. Let us brothers have a private chat." Zhong Qiu put his arm around Lin Sun's shoulder and moved away. Only Battle God Feng Ling, Xia Ji, and the drunkard were left. They all stared at one another in bewilderment. On the other hand, Big Yellow looked like it was abandoned, and it looked resentful. The drunkard was the first to break the silence. He smiled and said, "I am Battle Emperor Heavenly Destruction. This is Lady Qing Ying, and this must be Battle Emperor Feng Ling of the Black-Yellow Heavenly Court." As he spoke, he looked at Xia Ji curiously. A few days ago, there was also news related to this black-robed woman. It was said that she was invincible on the starry sky ancient path, and her battle prowess was extremely terrifying. Even the Emperor Realm experts were afraid of her. Battle God Feng Ling hurriedly replied, "That's me. This is Miss Xia Ji." Everyone chatted for a while, and soon became familiar with each other. However, Xia Ji was very quiet, and her temperament was as cold as snow. But soon, everyone got used to it. Together with Qing Ying, they walked towards the distant hall. Mother asterisk Kerr, it's fine if he didn't introduce me, but he didn't even greet me when he left. He's clearly looking down on me. Big Yellow, who had been waiting to be introduced, and greeted, squatted alone. It gritted its teeth and looked sad and indignant. Along the way, Battle God Feng Ling found out that Lin Sun's second senior brother, Zhong Xiu, was the Copper Sparrow Pavilion Master, one of the 3 Dark Hand Lords. He couldn't believe it no matter how hard he tried. The Copper Sparrow Pavilion Master, who was regarded as the most arrogant person in the heavens and had once refused to meet Shi Tiandi, was actually from the same sect as Lin Sun. If word of this got out, would all the major forces in the heavens be able to sit still? Lin Sun's return did not attract any attention from the outside world, because this was the land of darkness, the territory of the hidden mist house. In the hall, as soon as Lin Sun sat down, Zhong Xiu asked, "Where did Master go?" Lin Sun was startled. After thinking for a while, he told Zhong Xiu about the supreme battle that took place in the depths of the starry sky. When Zhong Xiu heard about the myriad transformation spear, the sky-splitting axe, the deity slaying sword, and the Armageddon that represented the 4 immortal clans, an undisguised killing intent appeared in Zhong Xiu's eyes. "When I go to the Nirvana realm in the future, I'll settle the scores with these clans." When Lin Sun mentioned the young man named Kong Ju, who had suffered a mental tribulation, Zhong Xiu's eyes flickered, and he showed a thoughtful expression. With a swallowing gourd hanging around his waist, he walked on the Great Way, went through 18 tribulations before his death, and achieved immortality after his death. It turns out to be him. Speaking of which, we, the successors of Feng Siyuan, should indeed call him martial uncle. There was a trace of emotion in Zhong Qiu's eyes. How could he not know that person was regarded as the first leader to go to the Nirvana realm in primitive times? But he didn't expect that such a person would encounter such a strange and terrible mental tribulation. Master said that when I go to the Nirvana realm in the future, I should bring martial uncle Kongju back, said Lin Sun. Zhong Qiu nodded and said, that's right. If the mental tribulation is not eliminated, he will definitely be schemed and used by others. Where's Master? He couldn't help asking. I don't know. Lin Sun shook his head and told him about the disappearance of Feng Siyuan's mind in Taoist form. Didn't Master say where his original body went? Zhong Qiu was stunned. Lin Sun shook his head. Zhong Qiu couldn't help sighing after a while. Yes, Master would have told me long ago if he wanted to. Since he didn't say it, there must be a reason. Next, the two talked about Nirvana realm. Things about Freedom Heaven. From Zhong Qiu's words, Lin Sun finally confirmed that the good fortune of becoming an emperor and ancestor was the Taoist form left by Master in the pattern of slanting moon and 3 stars. In other words, this fortuitous encounter was not an inheritance, nor was it a fortuitous encounter. It was the will of the Master of the core dimension. It was to protect Lin Sun when he became an emperor. Zhong Qiu said with a smile. That's why I gave you so many tests when I found out that you've obtained the tri-star and slanting moon diagram. It was all for the sake of seeing exactly what ability the person I, Zhong Qiu, have been waiting for countless years to be acknowledged by my master. Is Master satisfied now? Lin Sun asked with a smile. Zhong Qiu laughed and said, from now on, I will be proud of you, junior brother. They chatted for a long time, mostly about Zhong Qiu's advice to Lin Sun. As a person who had become an emperor in primitive times, Zhong Qiu's cultivation experience was naturally very rich. Lin Sun soon learned that there were 9 levels in the emperor realm, and each level was a natural moat. The first 3 levels were karma obstacles, regarded as emperor's heart obstacles. Once this obstacle was broken, both body and mind could be turned into a boundary. From the 4th to the 6th level, there was a difficulty called confinement difficulty. To break this confinement, there was no heaven. From the 7th to the 9th level, there was a tribulation called ancestral reversion tribulation. When one became an emperor, he or she would become an emperor. These obstacles, difficulties, and tribulations were the 3 watersheds on the road of emperor realm. If one crossed them, his or her combat power would be reborn, and he or she would have completely different power and strength from before. If one couldn't cross them, he or she would either stop here or die. This was the 9-level natural moat on the road of Emperor Realm. 3 levels were obstacles, 6 levels were difficulties, and 9 levels were tribulations. The law of Emperor Realm was to comprehend and control the most essential mysteries of the Great Way. The more profound the law of Emperor Realm was, the faster one would go on the road of Emperor Realm. Zhong Qiu specially reminded Lin Sun that if he wanted to go further on the road of Emperor Realm, he should create his own Tao Sutra and forge a matching Emperor weapon of Tao. This was the so-called Saint Tao Sutra, Emperor Realm Sutra. In the Saint Tao Sutra, one should create Tao Sutra. In the Emperor Realm, one should compose his or her own Tao Sutra. Tao Sutra and Tao Sutra were worlds apart from each other. Lin Sun couldn't help but think of the Great Way Furnace Sutra he created. Strictly speaking, it should be a Saint Tao Sutra, not a complete Emperor Sutra. At the same time, Lin Sun began to think seriously. If he perfected the Great Way Furnace Sutra into his own Emperor Sutra, how should he forge a matching Emperor weapon of Tao Sutra? The so-called Emperor weapon was a treasure of Emperor Realm closely related to his own Tao. When he was in the Saint Tao Sutra, Lin Sun cultivated the broken blade into his own saint weapon. But now it was obviously not suitable. First, he was already a peerless great emperor, and his Tao was no longer comparable to before. Second, Lin Sun had long discovered that there was a spirit in the broken blade, which was destined to be not suitable to be used to forge his own emperor weapon of Tao Sutra. After thinking about it, Lin Sun suddenly found that although he had a lot of treasures, it seemed that none of them really belonged to him and were completely compatible with his Tao. Seeing Lin Sun lost in thought for a long time, Zhongxiu couldn't help but say, "Don't worry. It's not difficult for you to write the Tao Sutra or forge the emperor weapon of Tao Sutra with your foundation." Lin Sun nodded. "Next, I want to talk to you about an important thing." Zhongxiu looked serious. "Junior brother, do you know who can really threaten us on the ancient way of starry sky?" Lin Sun was shocked and said without hesitation, "Emperor Shi Tiandi." Zhongxiu nodded and said, "In addition to him, there is a woman named Yin Xing. Although the former Emperor Nameless was killed by you, a wisp of his remnant soul survived and was saved by Yin Xing. If this old thing recovers, he will definitely be a big threat." Lin Sun was clear about this matter. After the game of chess, he went to Shunji Daoist sect, intending to inquire about the way to the true dragon's lair. When he arrived at Shinji Daoist sect, he found that this ancient orthodoxy had long been empty. But it was also at that time that he saw the purple-robed woman, Yin Xing, and also saw the former Emperor Nameless, who only had a wisp of his remnant soul left. Yin Xing called this person Ninth Granduncle. At that time, Yin Xing went to Shinji Daoist sect to inquire about the way to the true dragon's lair. This made Lin Sun very doubtful at that time that his mother was Luo Qing, or Master Lu was probably hiding in the true dragon's lair. Otherwise, it was impossible for Yin Xing to inquire about the true dragon's lair for no reason. It was also because of this suspicion that Lin Sun took the initiative to expose his whereabouts at that time to attract Yin Xing's attention. Finally, when they reached the dark world, it was she who made a move and had a confrontation with Yin Xing. From then on, Lin Sun and she were separated, and they hadn't seen each other until now. Lin Sun only knew that she was saved by his second senior brother, and Yin Xing survived. It was said that he went to find Emperor Shi Tiandi for help. Just as Lin Sun was thinking, he heard Zhongxiu say, "Recently, I have received news that Yin Xing is very likely to go to the true dragon's lair." Chapter 2292. The first thought that came to Lin Sun's mind was that this star trader was definitely up to no good by going to the true dragon lair this time. Different from Shi Tiandi, this star trader came to the ancient path of starry sky a long time ago to hunt down his mother and Lu Boya. This pursuit had lasted for countless years. If it were someone else, they would have given up long ago, but this star trader was so persistent that she hadn't given up until now. When she learned that Lin Sun was a descendant of Luo Qingxuan, she chose to attack him without hesitation. If she hadn't stopped her, the consequences would have been unimaginable. "Senior brother, is the news true?" Lin Sun asked with a frown. "The news came from Ancestor Chan Tuesday. Although this old guy is a little strange, he doesn't dare to joke about this," Zhongxiu said. Zhongxiu said, "Junior apprentice brother, I suspect that Planet Spill went to the true dragon's lair for the ancestral dragon's treasured blood. This blood is the most precious treasure of the true dragon bloodline. If Planet Spill obtained it, it would be enough to restore the nameless Empyrean's remnant soul in the shortest amount of time possible. Precious blood of the ancestral dragon." Lin Sun's black eyes flashed. "Senior brother, I have another doubt. I'm afraid the purpose of this woman going to the true dragon lair is not so simple." Speaking of this, he made a decision, "So I want to go and have a look myself. This is what I want to talk to you about," Zhongxiu said. Zhongxiu said, "Leave Shi Tiandi to me. Junior brother, your mission is to kill this Star Destroyer. Even if you can't kill her completely, you have to completely erase Venerable Sovereign Nameless Remnant Soul to prevent any future troubles." Lin Sun agreed readily. He had long wanted to go to the true dragon world. After all, he hadn't seen Zhao Jingxian for many years. The true dragon, like the immortal phoenix, the black tortoise, and the white tiger, is one of the 4 great primordial spirit clans born in the chaos at the beginning of primitive times. They are regarded as the best of all spirits, Zhongxiu said in a low voice. However, At the beginning of primitive times, the four great primordial spirit clans migrated from the ancient path of starry sky. For countless years, people only knew of the existence of the true dragon world, the immortal phoenix nest, the black tortoise continent, and the white tiger divine mountain. However, very few people knew the exact location of their residences. If you want to go to the Jinlong world, you can go to the Xian clan to ask for information. The Xian clan is an ancient emperor clan. At the beginning of the ancient immemorial era, they controlled the chaos treasure, the mysterious god treasure mirror. Moreover, their ancestors had countless connections with the Jinlong world. With the help of the Xian clan, you will definitely be able to find the path to the true dragon world. As Zhong Xiu spoke, he took out a sealed letter and said, "Junior brother, take this letter and look for the head of the Xian family, Xian Shanshan. This old fellow owes me a favor, and it's time for him to repay it." Xian family, Xian Shanshan. Lin Sun's eyes lit up. He didn't forget that on the first day he entered Nirvana heaven, Xian Zhuyin had invited him to Xian family as a guest. Lin Sun put away the letter and suddenly remembered something. He asked, "Senior brother, are you going to deal with Shirtiani?" Zhong Xiu said, "Nirvana heaven has come to an end. I've been guarding this place for countless years, and I've waited for a satisfactory result. Of course, I won't stay here any longer. If I want to go to the other side of the starry sky, I'll have to kill Shirtiani first." His tone was casual and flat. "Senior brother, are you confident?" Lin Sun couldn't help but worry. Shirtiani was an existence stronger than the nameless supreme emperor. Zhong Xiu blinked his eyes and said, "Junior brother, I need your help. Why don't you help me?" Lin Sun smiled bitterly and said, "Senior brother, Buzhou Mountain has been taken away by senior sister Ruosu. What else do you think I can do?" Zhong Xiu smiled and said, "Junior brother, don't belittle yourself. I've waited for so many years not only to witness you blossom into a lotus, but also to wait for an opportunity. And this opportunity is now in your hands." Lin Sun's eyes lit up. "The order power of Nirvana heaven." Zhong Xiu nodded. "The order power of Nirvana heaven is the origin order of the ancient path of the starry sky. It's enough to resist and contend against the forbidden order power from the other side. As long as I can do this, how can that old bastard Shirtiani fight me with just his own combat strength?" There was a hint of disdain in his voice at the end. After all, the real threat to him was the forbidden order power. As for how strong Shirtiani's cultivation was, Zhong Xiu really didn't care. Lin Sun turned his palm over, and a Nirvana lotus pattern emerged, flowing with the mysterious fluctuation of the law of order. Zhong Xiu's eyes burst with divine brilliance as he stared at the pattern and said with emotion, "The origin order power that I've been waiting for so long has finally appeared. It's really extraordinary. Please take it, senior brother." Lin Sun handed over the Nirvana lotus pattern without hesitation. With a solemn expression, Zhong Xiu took out a cauldron and put away the Nirvana lotus pattern. Then, he made a gesture with both hands and sealed the cauldron thousands of times before he heaved a sigh of relief. The order power of the starry sky is incomparably powerful. Even with my strength, it'll take me some time to try to use it. Zhong Xiu pondered and said, "From today on, I'll go into closed-door training for a period of time, at least 3 to 5 years, at most 10 years. Junior brother, please take care of yourself during this period." Lin Sun nodded. The next morning, Zhong Xiu left the secret place with Lin Sun, Xia Ji, Qing Ying, Goldie, and the others. In the secret realm, Lin Sun saw Xi, who he hadn't seen for a long time. She was as cold as snow, graceful and outstanding as before. "If you hadn't come back, I would have gone to look for you," said she. Lin Sun smiled and cupped his hands. "I've made you worry, senior." She nodded and looked at Zhong Xiu, saying, "Thank you for taking care of me these days. I hope you could defeat Shirtiandi when we meet again." Zhong Xiu smiled and said, "I'll wait and see." She didn't say anything more. She turned into a ray of light rain and returned to the heaven-accessing secret land. For her, the heaven-accessing secret land had long since become an existence like her home. "Goldie, from today on, you'll follow my junior brother and listen to his orders. Remember, you have to listen to his orders in all actions. Don't make trouble." Zhongxiu looked at Goldie and said gently. Goldie was obviously very unhappy. He glared at Lin Sun. How could an existence like Lin Sun listen to a little guy like him? However, when Goldie met Zhongxiu's calm gaze, he immediately became timid. He nodded listlessly, his eyes full of hidden bitterness. Lin Sun was also stunned. He had never expected that his second senior brother would let this dog follow him. Lin Sun felt a headache when he thought of this dog's arrogant and domineering attitude. Zhongxiu smiled and said, "Don't underestimate Big Yellow just because he's a dog. Ordinary monarchs are no match for him. Strictly speaking, Big Yellow has been by my side since I was young. If it wasn't for the fact that he's unwilling to leave me, he could have established his own orthodoxy and become his own monarch." Zhongxiu was young. It was the primitive times, not to mention a dog, even an insect that cultivated with Zhongxiu and was able to survive until now was bound to be an extremely terrifying existence. Hearing Zhongxiu's praise, Goldie raised his head proudly and squinted at Lin Sun with a look that said, "Boy, you finally know how great I am." Lin Sun's lips twitched. He covered his forehead and sighed softly. "Alas, as long as he doesn't make trouble for me." Goldie was annoyed at once. He bared his teeth and looked at Lin Sun gloomily. But in the end, he held back because of Zhongxiu. He had no choice. After all, Lin Sun was his master's junior brother. If it were someone else, he would bite him at death first. At this time, Zhongxiu looked at Qingying again and said softly, "Qingying, from today on, you will stay here to cultivate. Don't refuse this time. When Formation Emperor Lu left, he told me to take care of you. As you can see, my junior brother has become an emperor. If you really want to repay Formation Emperor Lu's kindness, you can't do it without great power." The origin of Qingying was very mysterious. Even Zhongxiu only knew that she was brought back by Formation Emperor Lu and raised by him. But Zhongxiu knew clearly that Qingying's foundation and talent were absolutely rare. She was definitely not weaker than his junior brother. Unfortunately, she had been in no mood to cultivate. She had been sitting in the dark all the time. All she wanted to do was to take care of the hidden mist house and live up to Formation Emperor Lu's kindness. Otherwise, with her talent, she could have become an emperor many years ago. Yes, become an emperor. This was also the reason why Zhongxiu was surprised. He really didn't know where Formation Emperor Lu found such an enchanting baby girl. Qingying originally intended to refuse, but after looking at Lin Sun, she finally nodded. Lin Sun was brought up by Formation Emperor Lu. In her heart, Lin Sun was like her younger brother. If she didn't have enough power, it would be difficult for her to help him in the future. Lin Sun also clearly felt that Qingying treated him with unusual affinity and kindness. It was like the spring breeze and rain, but it was not excessive. "Take care, Miss Qingying." He smiled and cupped his hands. Qingying nodded and said, "Child, if you have a chance to see Formation Emperor Lu, please say hello to him for me." Lin Sun nodded and agreed. On this day, Zhongxiu opened a starry sky, shifting formation, and sent Lin Sun, Xia Ji, and Golden Yellow away. This day was the 12th day after the end of Nirvana Heaven. The news that Lin Sun had become an emperor and killed a group of emperors was still fermenting and spreading on the starry sky, ancient road. Boom! A terrifying rain of space-time roiled within a spatial passageway, and it emanated rumbling that sounded like thunderclaps. Lin Sun and Xia Ji walked side by side, with Golden Yellow on their side. Together, they rushed to the front of the tunnel. What they saw in front of them was all twisted and gorgeous time, which was magnificent. This was a tunnel from the dark world to the starry sky, ancient road. The place it led to was the Brahmin Earth world in the Wise King Star area. According to Zhongxiu, after entering the Brahmin Earth world, one could cross the starry sky in the shortest time and reach the mysterious mountain, where the Xian family was located. The mysterious mountain was an almost unknown secret world. It was comparable to a big world. It was the ancestral land of the Xian family, an ancient emperor family. It had been monopolized by the Xian family since ancient times. Chapter 2293. Vajrayana Starfield. Brahma Earth World, deep in Mount Moran. A man, a woman, and a dog walked out of the void along with a roar. They were Lin Sun, Xia Ji, and Goldie. Finally back to the starry sky, ancient path, Lin Sun took a deep breath. From all directions, the rolling spiritual energy gathered towards Lin Sun like a torrent. The peerlessly pure spirit energy here was sufficient to intoxicate cultivators below the Imperial Emperor realm, and it was utterly impossible to experience such a thing in the desolate and dried-up world of darkness. But for Lin Sun, this spiritual energy was not enough to satisfy his cultivation needs. The resources needed to cultivate in the Emperor realm were also astonishing, unless it was in the world's top mountains and blessed lands, such as the Six Tao Courts and the 10 War Clans. Otherwise, ordinary places would not be able to satisfy the cultivation of Emperor Realm. Just like this vast mountain range, it was also enshrouded in dense spiritual qi. But if Lin practiced here, he could exhaust all the spiritual qi here in less than 3 days. In short, treasures such as spiritual marrow, spiritual stones, and Taoist crystals were not suitable for the cultivation of Emperor Realm. Only the great Tao origin crystals born from the primordial chaos were the cultivation resources that great emperors needed. Fortunately, Lin Sun did not lack all kinds of cultivation resources. Swish! Immediately, Lin Sun took out a map, looked at it for a moment, and said, starting from the Buddhist Earth world, we have to cross 3-star areas and 39 worlds before we can reach the ferry to the mysterious ridge. This ferry is called Metaphysic, located on the bank of the cloud mist Milky Way. Goldie interrupted impatiently. Why don't you just lead the way? Do you want me to tell you how to lead the way? Lin Sun glanced at Xia Ji, who was also absent-minded. He felt helpless. Well, he could only rely on himself. Lin Sun, I'm hungry, Xia Ji suddenly said. Come on, let's get on the ship, and then I'll cook something delicious for you. Lin Sun took out the vast universe arc, rose into the air, and flew away. On the ship, Lin Sun was already prepared. He took some alien beast meat, various spiritual vegetables, and seasonings, and began to cook. Big Yellow was dumbfounded, and it could not help but sneer. How did a top-notch emperor become a chef? Lin Sun didn't pay attention to this guy who couldn't utter decent language and concentrated on his work. Soon, a tempting aroma of meat filled the air. Golden and oily barbecue, steaming hot pot, fresh and delicious fruits and vegetables, rich and varied snacks and seasonings. Every single one of them could be said to have been carefully selected, and they'd gathered the rare treasures of the 4 seas and contained the delicacies of the various worlds. Goldie, who had been laughing at Lin Sun, was dumbfounded and drooled. Lin Sun's craftsmanship was not bad. Summer Solstice ate seriously and ignored Big Yellow's fiery gaze. Lin Sun couldn't bear to do that. He threw a huge bone in front of Goldie and said, "Eat it." "Yes, bones." Big Yellow's blood rushed to its head. Its eyes burned with rage, and its body released a fearsome aura, as if it was about to go berserk. Following that, in a flash, it came to the table, picked up a piece of barbecue, and ate it fiercely. "Boy, I won't lower myself to your level. For the sake of this meal, I'll forgive you. My God, what's this meat? It's so fresh and tender." It ate happily, its tail wagging nonstop. Summer Solstice looked up at Goldie and suddenly sped up the speed of eating. She ate and drank with both hands. Goldie didn't give in and ate heartily like a hungry dog. Lin Sun stared at this scene for a long time and then rubbed his eyebrows. Goldie was not only domineering and arrogant, but also a rascal. He smiled, turned around, and walked out of the cabin. Standing by the railing, he held the wine gourd and drank alone, his clothes fluttering in the sea of clouds and the flowing wind. Lin Sun suddenly remembered that the Brahma Earth world was the territory of the Kong family, an ancient imperial family. Solitary Sky, Demon Emperor, Kong Lin, Kong Yu, Kong Zhao. Familiar names flashed through Lin Sun's mind. Speaking of which, the hatred between him and the Kong family could be said to be irreconcilable. Solitary Sky Demon Emperor was the leader of the 7 primordial demon emperors. In the Tao battle of the emperors in ancient times, senior brother Gyupu was restrained by Solitary Sky Demon Emperor and some other old monsters. In the end, he ended up dead. Lin Sun still remembered that when he met senior brother Gyupu at the foot of the Godlock Peak in Kunlun Ruins, Gyupu was still full of guilt. He said that in the Tao battle of the emperors, because he didn't help in time, some of his junior brothers and sisters died. Thinking of this, Lin Sun raised his head and took a sip of wine. The Kong family, even if it's not for my personal grudge, I can't let this go. Goldie, have you eaten the meat of the 5-colored peacock? He suddenly asked. In the cabin, Goldie, whose mouth was full of grease, shook his head. I've been staying in the dark world for countless years. How could I eat good food in such a remote place? Wait, that's not right. Speaking of this, he turned his head, looked at Lin Sun, and said suspiciously, Boy, you're not thinking of attacking the Kong family, are you? Lin Sun raised his thumb and praised. Goldie, you have a pair of dog eyes. You really have a pair of sharp eyes. How about going to the Kong family, an imperial family? Goldie was indifferent. He continued to eat and drink, and said vaguely with puffed cheeks, This is the territory of the Kong family, an imperial family. It's a primordial imperial family anyway. How can I go there casually? I advise you to keep a low profile. Otherwise, if you make a big trouble, I won't be able to explain to my master. Lin Sun was stunned. It was the first time he heard the word low profile from Goldie. Wasn't this guy always domineering? You really don't want to go? Lin Sun asked. No. Then don't regret it. Oh, what kind of dog am I that will regret it? Lin Sun said indifferently. Well, from today on, you can make whatever you want to eat. Xia Ji, let's go together. Xia Ji nodded. Okay. Goldie was stunned and said angrily, Boy, do you really think I'm afraid of trouble? Isn't it for your own good? Given my temper, let alone the Kong family, it's nothing even if I go to the 6 Taoist courts. Haven't you heard that in the dark world, it's better to provoke the king of hell than Goldie? Look at those old things from the divine Sunshine Ancient Sect and the Hidden Land Realm. Which one of them dares not to fear me? Goldie sat up straight, and his face was full of arrogance. Lin Sun asked directly, Are you going or not? Goldie's face was cloudy, and it said, Let's make this clear first. If my master blames me if I make a big trouble, I'll say that you forced me to do it. Lin Sun laughed, knowing that Goldie was worried about being scolded by his second senior brother. He said without hesitation, Don't worry, I won't let you be wronged. Goldie stretched out its leg and hit the table, and its eyes lit up. It said excitedly, Then what are we waiting for? Let's go to the Kong family. I won't hide it from you. I've been wanting to taste the 5-colored peacock meat for a long time. I heard that too. My master once killed an old peacock with one punch. That polearm of divine destruction plucked the old peacock's feathers and made a pot of meat soup. Even someone as proud as my master couldn't help but eat 2 big bowls of it. At the end, it drooled again. It's a pity I wasn't there, or I would have definitely tried it. Even now, when that polearm of divine destruction mentions that pot of meat soup, he misses it so much. You didn't think of eating the 5-colored peacock meat long ago, did you? Lin Sun looked at Goldie, who was talking nonstop, beaming with joy and excitement, and suddenly realized that he had been tricked. Goldie grinned and said, Of course. Who doesn't know that the Brahma Earth world is the territory of the Kong family? Do you know why we were moved here? It's because after my master killed that old peacock, he thought that if he wanted to taste the peacock meat again in the future, at least he wouldn't have to go through the trouble of traveling, and he could come here directly by teleportation. So, Lin Sun was stunned and said, So he left the coordinates of the starry sky shifting tunnel here. Exactly. Goldie laughed. Lin Sun put his hand on his forehead, speechless. Second senior brother was such a proud person, but he left the coordinates of the starry sky shifting tunnel in this tribulation for a pot of meat soup. Was he a foodie in his bones? Big Yellow sighed and said, It's been countless years, and I've finally returned to the starry sky ancient path. I wonder, who in this world still remembers Battle Emperor Shao, who once dominated the universe and suppressed the world? Battle Emperor Shao. The corners of Lin Sun's mouth twitched. This Taoist name was appropriate. Let's go, don't dawdle anymore. The more Goldie said, the more impatient he became. His dog eyes were full of fire, as if Lin Sun had taken the responsibility for him, and he resumed his lawless and domineering manner. An hour later, in the distant sky, an old man in a Confucian robe was flying in the air with a girl. An old man and a girl, dressed in gorgeous clothes, stepped on shining flying swords, and their sleeves fluttered. At first glance, it was obvious that they were not ordinary practitioners. Taoism peer, please wait, Lin Sun said, and vast universe arc suddenly caught up with them. The old man in a Confucian robe frowned. He was a little displeased at first, but when he looked at Lin Sun, he was slightly stunned and immediately showed a kind smile. What can I do for you? The girl next to him looked at Lin Sun curiously with a pair of big watery eyes. Lin Sun said, I can't give you advice. I just want to inquire about the way to the Imperial Kong family. The old man in a Confucian robe said with a smile, What a coincidence. Are you also going to the Wisdom King sacrifice held by the Imperial Kong family? Wisdom King sacrifice? Lin Sun was stunned, but he still nodded with a smile, kind of, then we could go together, but I don't know if you mind. The old man in a Confucian robe smiled kindly with a hint of awe. Chapter 2294. The old man was called Gu Yangting. He came from the Gu Liang clan, one of the 7 ancient emperor clans of the Brahma Earth world. He was a third-stage quasi-emperor. In the absence of emperor realm experts, Gu Yangting's combat capability could be said to be at the peak of the world, and he had great majesty in the eyes of the world. But as soon as he boarded the vast universe arc, Gu Yangting's heart trembled and he gasped. Grandpa, this big dog is eating really happily. The girl next to him pointed to Big Yellow, who was eating and drinking in the distance. Her voice was clear and sweet. Gu Yangting scolded, Luo Luo, don't be rude. Then, under the girl's widened eyes, Gu Yangting bowed respectfully to the big dog. Junior Gu Yangting pays respect to Senior. Big Yellow spat out the bone in his mouth, squinted at Gu Yangting, and continued to wolf down his food. Such a small character obviously couldn't enter Big Yellow's eyes. Gu Yangting, however, didn't show any trace of annoyance. He still looked respectful, but when he inadvertently glanced at Xia Ji sitting opposite Big Yellow, he trembled all over and lowered his bowed figure even more. The girl Luoluo was dumbfounded when she saw this scene. The lively and naive girl suddenly became timid and didn't even dare to breathe. In her heart, her grandpa was already an extremely prestigious figure, and wherever he went, he would be surrounded by people like stars around the moon. But now it was completely reversed. The girl Luluo immediately realized that the man, the woman, and the dog on this ship were all extremely experts. Taoism peer, don't stand on ceremony, please sit down first, Lin Sun said as he walked into the cabin. As he spoke, he took out some rare fruits and handed them to the girl who had become very reserved. He smiled. Little girl, try these fruits, they taste very good. Luoluo looked at Gu Yangting, who hurriedly said, Luoluo, you can't refuse an elder's gift. Quickly salute and thank him. The girl Luoluo received the fruits with both hands and then bowed her head obediently. Thank you, elder brother. Big Yellow giggled. This little girl is quite interesting. Gu Yangting glared at Lu. Elder is elder. What elder brother? Lin Sun interrupted with a smile. It's just a title. Don't scare the girl. Only now did Gu Yangting heave a sigh of relief. Through these details, he knew that the young man before him with unfathomable strength wasn't someone that was difficult to get along with. Next, Lin Sun asked about the Wisdom King ceremony without hiding anything. Although Gu Yangting felt it was strange, he still told her everything he knew. The Emperor Kong clan was also known as the Wisdom King bloodline. It was rumored that their founder, the demonic Emperor Du Tian, had a deep relationship with Buddhism before he attained the Tao and was given the title of Wisdom King Peacock. Every 1,000 years, the Imperial Kong clan would hold a Wisdom King ceremony. Firstly, it was to worship their ancestors, and secondly, It was to use this opportunity to select a prince from the clan. Gu Yangting said the previous imperial prince was Kong Zhao, and he joined the primordial Dao court to cultivate. He possessed extraordinary talent and unparalleled resources, and he was viewed as a good seedling that had the highest chance of becoming an emperor. Who would have imagined that he would be killed by the successor of Mount Hart, Lin Sun, in the ancient immortal forbidden area a few years ago? There was a hint of emotion in his voice. The young girl, Luo Luo, ate a spiritual fruit and said in a crisp voice, "It's Emperor Daoyuan, the first peerless great emperor in the starry sky ancient path in the last 100,000 years." Her voice was filled with admiration, and her beautiful big eyes were shining. Gu Yangting was instantly embarrassed, and he hurriedly scolded, "How can you interrupt when the adults are talking?" Then he said to Lin Sun, "Please don't misunderstand. My granddaughter is young and ignorant. She has a big mouth." On the starry sky ancient path, Emperor Daoyuan was a fearsome existence. Although he had caused a sensation in all heavens, no one dared to talk about him in front of strangers. They were afraid that the orthodoxies under Emperor Shurtiendi would overhear them and cause unnecessary misunderstandings. "It's okay." Lin Sun smiled. "Speaking of Emperor Daoyuan, the world's evaluation of him doesn't seem to be very good." Gu Yangting hesitated for a moment and sighed. In the final analysis, this Emperor Daoyuan has killed too many people. Many ancient orthodoxies in the starry sky hate him and regard him as a scourge. He paused for a moment and continued. "But no one can deny that the Daoyuan Emperor is a supreme legend indeed. His deeds have spread throughout the world a long time ago. Presently, numerous cultivators of the younger generation worship the Daoyuan Emperor to the extreme. Just like me." The young girl, Luluo, interrupted, "In my heart, Emperor Daoyuan is the first heavenly talent in all heavens. He is indisputable and unparalleled. No one in the world can compete with him." Lin Sun was stunned and couldn't help laughing. It was quite interesting to be talked about by others. Gu Yangting glared at Luo Luo fiercely, as if blaming her for talking too much. The speed of Vast Universe Arc was very fast. In just half a day, they had entered the territory covered by Mount Tianhui. Mount Tianhui was the first sacred mountain in the Brahma Earth world. It was regarded as a miracle by countless practitioners. This was also the place where the Imperial Kong clan was based. Before they arrived, they could already see many dazzling escape lights rushing in the direction of Mount Tianhui from all directions. Some were riding magic weapons, some were riding spiritual birds and flying beasts, and some were riding treasure ships just like Lin Sun. They were densely packed, and it was a spectacular sight. According to Gu Yangting, this time, the Imperial Kong clan was hosting the Wisdom King ritual. Not only did the major forces of the Brahma Earth world come with generous gifts, but even some ancient orthodoxies from the primordial world and other starry sky had come. From this, it could be seen how powerful the Imperial Kong clan was. Let's part ways here. Outside Tianhui City, Lin Sun put away the Vast Universe Arc and said goodbye to Gu Yangting and Luo Luo. "Fellow Taoist, you don't have an invitation, so you can't go to the Wisdom King ritual. Why don't you come with me?" Gu Yangting couldn't help asking. "Forget it. It's enough for us to meet each other. If I really stay with you, I will bring you trouble." Lin Sun refused with a smile. Then, he disappeared with Xia, Ji, and Goldie. "Trouble?" Luo Luo was startled and confused. Gu Yangting's expression changed. He realized that something was wrong. Could this group of people be looking for trouble with the Imperial Kong clan? If that was the case, they were too bold. "Come, let's go and take a look." Gu Yangting grabbed Luo Luo and hurried toward Tianhui Mountain in the distance. Tianhui Mountain was majestic and extraordinary. There were many mountain peaks scattered around it, all bathed in divine light and auspicious rain. The Wisdom King ritual, which attracted guests from all over, would be held at noon today. The location was in front of Tianhui Mountain. At this time, an ancient altar that was thousands of feet wide stood there. The area around it was already packed with people. All the big shots from the major forces were standing there. Ordinary people couldn't even get close to it. even if it was a famous and powerful person. Without an invitation from the Imperial Kong clan, they couldn't even think about taking a step into this area. Look, that's one of the primordial Dao Court's Grand Elders, War Emperor Shueshing. Amethyst Mountain's Qilong Sword Emperor is also here. Look over there, the Kuan clan and Su clan, which are also far ancient imperial clans, have also sent their martial emperors to attend the ritual. There were sounds of discussion everywhere. Many people's faces were filled with surprise. The Imperial Kong clan was too grand. This was a grand event to worship the ancestors and select the emperor's disciple, but it was so grand. There were even many martial emperors present. This could be considered a grand event even in the heavenly planes. The sacrificial altar that covered an area of 3 kilometers had long since been piled up with all sorts of precious treasures, and it was a dazzling lineup that flowed with the glow of treasures. All of those were the precious gifts given by the spectators, and every single one of them was of shocking value, causing them to pile into a small hill. At the front of the altar stood a group of big shots from the Imperial Kong clan and a young man who was in high spirits. He had sharp eyebrows and bright eyes, and his appearance was outstanding. Seeing this grand scene, the young man couldn't help but smile proudly. His name was Kong Xian, and he'd been determined to be the new emperor. A black-haired man in violet robes stood by Kong Xian's side. He had a dignified bearing and emanated a supreme, imposing aura. He was the 7th elder of the Imperial Kong clan, the Searing Snow Sword Emperor. He would personally preside over the Wisdom King ritual this time. At this moment, even though he had a reserved expression, the pride in his eyes couldn't be concealed. Kong Xian, do you see this? This is the influence of our Imperial Kong clan. All the powers in the heavenly planes that have a good relationship with our Imperial Kong clan have sent people to attend the ritual. The Searing Snow Sword Emperor spoke slowly. Kong Xian was extremely excited in his heart. It was the first time he'd experienced such a grand event, and he felt especially honored and proud. However, you have to remember how the previous imperial disciple, Kong Zhao, died. The Searing Snow Sword Emperor's voice suddenly became low and icy cold. So long as Lin Daoyuan doesn't die, he'll be a great calamity to our Imperial Kong clan. We can't forget this enmity. Kong Xian's pupils constricted while the joy in his heart was replaced by a strand of heavy pressure. Lin Daoyuan, the renowned Dao Yuan Emperor. How could Kong Xian not know? Suddenly, someone asked, Brother Searing Snow, speaking of Lin Daoyuan, he has a deep hatred with your Imperial Kong clan. Now, the world doesn't know whether he's dead or alive. Brother Searing Snow, do you think he'll come and make trouble if he's still alive? His words attracted the attention of other big shots nearby, and they all looked at the Searing Snow Sword Emperor. Nowadays, Lin Sun, the Dao Yuan Emperor, was the hottest topic on the Starry Ancient Path. No matter where he went, he could be heard talking about him. The Searing Snow Sword Emperor frowned, and then said proudly, If the remnant of Mount Heart is really alive, our Imperial Kong clan will never spare him. After a pause, he put his hands behind his back and glanced at the audience. His tone became more and more indifferent. I wish he dares to appear here, but the key is, does he dare? His voice was full of arrogance. This was the Brahma Earth world, the territory of the Imperial Kong clan. Which emperor in this world dared to come here and make trouble? They must be tired of living. Chapter 2295. Would he dare? Would he dare? The burning snow sword emperor's voice reverberated endlessly, causing the clamorous atmosphere to fall into silence. Then, a burst of laughter rang out. That was clearly impossible. Up until now, the fate of the Dao Yuan Emperor Lin Sun was still unknown. Even if he was alive, would he dare to come to the Kong family's territory and provoke them? Who didn't know that the Brahma Earth Great World was ruled by the Imperial Kong family? The Imperial Kong family was the strongest of the 7 great demon clans. It was so powerful that it could affect the entire Vajrayana starfield. Not to mention ordinary cultivators. Even the Imperial Emperors wouldn't dare to behave atrociously in the Imperial Kong family's territory. The Searing Snow Sword Emperor smiled as well, and he said, Everyone, don't worry. If the remnant evil of Mount Heart really dares to come, then my Imperial Clan Kong clan will eradicate this evil creature for the sake of the starry sky and return peace to the world." His words were spoken domineeringly. However, at that moment, a calm voice suddenly rang out. "Big Yellow, do you see that? If I, Lin, hadn't come this time, how would I have known that even the Imperial Clan, the Kong clan, would dare to clamor about eliminating me?" As the voice rang out, a boundlessly terrifying emperors might suddenly spread out in this world, causing the void to tremble and the rocks and vegetation to shake. And before the voice finished, a wave of panicked and terrified voices came from far away. The densely packed crowd seemed to have been hit by a flood, and a path was forcefully created. On both sides of the path were cultivators rolling on the ground. Regardless of their cultivation, they were all rolling on the ground like gourds at this moment. Screams of terror rang out. Rumble. The entire area was trembling. The Emperor's might was released, suppressing everyone to the point of suffocation. All of their expressions changed. The originally bustling atmosphere was completely shattered. Suddenly encountering such an unexpected event before the 3 kilometers tall sacrificial altar caused the Sword Emperor Burns now and all the other great figures to be slightly taken by surprise, and they were extremely astounded. This was the Wisdom King sacrificial that the Imperial Kong family held once every 1,000 years, and it was in front of Mount Tianhui, the Imperial Kong family's territory. There was actually someone in this world who dared to come and cause trouble. No one had expected this. Lin, could it be that fellow? An old monster was the first to react, and his expression changed. At this moment, when everyone recalled the contents of that voice, their hearts twitched violently, and they revealed expressions of disbelief. "Dao Yuan Emperor Lin, son?" For a time, the atmosphere was extremely oppressive. However, Sword Emperor Burning Snow's expression was gloomy as he took a deep breath and said, "Who are you? Who gave you the courage to come cause trouble in my Imperial Clan's Kong clan? Are you tired of living?" His voice was like a clap of thunder, rumbling in all directions. Boundless Emperor realm pressure spread out, spreading far and wide. All the cultivators in the vicinity instinctively moved far away. Even if they didn't dare confirm the identity of this person, none of them wanted to be affected by it. Right at this moment, everyone finally saw the auspicious rain and multicolored light flowing in the void extremely far away, and it transformed into a perfectly straight divine rainbow of the great Tao that shot through the sky. On the divine rainbow of the great path, a man, a woman, and a dog walked through the void toward them. The man was dressed in a moon-white robe, and his black hair hung loosely over his shoulders. His every move was indifferent and otherworldly, but as he walked, the invisible Emperor realm pressure spread out, causing the world to shake and the great Tao to cry. At the first sight of this man, the young girl Luoluo, who was standing in the crowd in the distance, opened her mouth and was about to exclaim, but her mouth was tightly covered by Gu Liangting, who was next to her. Gu Liangting's expression changed greatly, and his heart was shaken. He finally understood what Lin Sun meant when he said he wouldn't cause trouble for him. At this moment, when they saw the man in the lead, all the big shots in the field were stunned and confused. "Who is this guy? Don't you recognize me?" As he spoke, the man's body flowed with radiance, and his originally ordinary appearance instantly became handsome and handsome. His black eyes were deep, and his entire body emanated a great, imposing aura that seemed as if it could swallow the universe and look down upon the world. "It's him, Dao Yuan Emperor Lin's son." Suddenly, someone cried out in surprise. Immediately after, the whole field was in an uproar. Everyone seemed to see a legend, and their faces were full of disbelief. Even Burning Snow, Sword Emperor, and the other big shots were dumbfounded at this moment, and they almost suspected that there was something wrong with their eyes. The scene became deathly silent for a moment. A person who was thought to be impossible to appear here had miraculously appeared in front of them. The shock and impact made everyone present feel like they were dreaming. It should be known that it was less than half a month since the end of Nirvana Ishvara. Almost everyone on the ancient starry sky knew that although Lin Sun, who had become an emperor, could be called an unparalleled legend, his life and death were unknown after all. Even many people had seriously suspected that he had already died in Nirvana Ishvara. It should be known that Burning Snow Sword Emperor had proclaimed with great confidence that even if Lin Sun was alive, he would never dare to act wildly in the territory of the Imperial Kong clan. He even said with great domineeringness that even if Lin Sun really came, he would definitely eliminate him and return peace to the world. But now Lin Sun had come. This legendary Supreme Emperor had appeared in their field of vision alive, and he had come to the front of the Tianhui Mountain of the Imperial Kong clan alive. This was like a resounding slap on Burning Snow Sword Emperor's face, and it didn't even last overnight. After a short silence, the atmosphere in the scene was stirred. Countless cultivators with curiosity, shock, and doubt fell on Lin Sun in unison. What did the Supreme Emperor Lin Daoyuan want to do here? Did he really intend to seek revenge on the Imperial Kong clan? Grandpa, so he is. The young girl Luoluo was overjoyed, and her eyes were shining with excitement. But before she finished speaking, her mouth was covered by Gu Liangting. Gu Liangting was dumbfounded. His scalp was numb, and his heart was in turmoil. How could he have imagined that a random young man he met on the road was the Daoyuan Emperor who had already shocked the starry sky? I didn't expect that you're actually still alive. Burning Snow Sword Emperor came back to his senses, and his face was livid with disbelief. So, you've come for revenge? This was really absurd. A young man who was hated by the Imperial Kong clan didn't wait for them to seek revenge, but came to them on his own initiative. Lin Sun flicked his fingers and said indifferently, "That's unnecessary nonsense. Besides revenge, what else does the Imperial Kong clan have that's worth me coming here personally?" Beside him, Goldie added, "Meat." It was a single word, but it made Big Yellow think of a tempting scene. He stared at Burning Snow Sword Emperor with a gloomy gaze, and saliva flowed from his mouth. No matter how strange the scene was, it still made everyone's heart tremble. He really came to seek revenge. However, this Daoyuan Emperor was too daring. This was the territory of the Imperial Kong clan. He was a supreme emperor. Did he really think that killing some emperors would be able to shake a primordial imperial clan with an incomparably ancient foundation? Although it was hard to believe, everyone present still subconsciously moved a distance away for fear that they would be affected if a battle broke out. Even some of the great forces that were on good terms with the Imperial Kong clan chose to retreat at this moment. The Imperial Kong clan dared to provoke the great emperor who had already shaken the heavens, but they dared not. Witnessing this scene, Burning Snow Sword Emperor's expression became more and more livid. He stared at Lin Sun and said with a fake smile, "You came at the right time. Today is the Wisdom King sacrificial ceremony of my clan. After killing you, your flesh and soul will come to Hong as a sacrifice." "Is that so?" Lin Sun said casually, "Big Yellow, I'll leave those above the 6th level to you, and those below the 6th level to me and Xie Ji. How about that?" Big Yellow grinned, revealing his snow-white teeth, and said, "Boy, I like what you said. Ordinary Emperor Realm experts really can't enter this seat's discerning eyes." Everyone couldn't help but look askance. Who was this dog? His tone was even more arrogant than the imperial ancestor. Too much nonsense. Let's finish this quickly. Xie Ji, who had not spoken all this while, seemed to be a little impatient. She carried the white-boned spear and suddenly stepped into the air, just like a dark, flowing light. Everyone was astonished. Who was this person? He directly made a move? Humph. Burning Snow Sword Emperor suddenly flicked his sleeve, and an emperor's sword charged out. It gave rise to a sharp light that tore through the sky and slashed down toward Xie Ji. Bang! Peerless Emperor's aura swept out and shattered the clouds in all directions. At this moment, all the cultivators present here didn't hesitate to flee once more. They retreated far away, and not a single one of them dared to hesitate. This was a battle between emperors, and the scope of its effects was too large. It could easily incinerate mountains, boil seas, destroy a city, and cause the sun, moon, and stars to tremble. Not to mention resisting it. Ordinary cultivators would even suffer annihilation if they were slightly touched by the murderous aura of the Emperor realm. However, Xia Ji didn't even spare a glance. She waved the white-boned spear and smashed the sword Qi with a bang, and then her figure flashed to arrive before burning Snow Sword Emperor. She waved her spear. Bang! The Emperor's sword in burning Snow Sword Emperor's hand was slashed into two, and his entire body was pierced through the chest by the spear. Blood sprayed out like a waterfall. Such an old monster with a cultivation of the third-level Emperor realm, whose name shook the Brahma Earth Great World, was killed by a single spear strike like a chicken or a dog. Such a bloody and shocking scene struck many people like they were struck by lightning, and their souls almost jumped out of their bodies. Previously, everyone's attention was on Lin's son. No one had expected that this woman in a black robe with a graceful figure and a hood would have such terrifying battle prowess. Don't break it. The taste of the intact 5-color peacock meat is even better. Big Yellow's anxious warning sounded from afar, but the content of the warning left everyone dumbfounded. She killed Burning Snow, Sword Emperor, just to eat meat? It was too terrifying. Some of the great figures' faces turned green. Kill. Quickly go and invite the supreme elders of the clan. At this moment, several great figures of the Emperor Kong clan near the altar moved, and they let out furious roars. Everyone, the remnants of Fengtsun Mountain that are wanted by Emperor Shirtini have appeared. Please join me and help the fellow Taoists of the Kong clan in battle. The voice of Xuexing War Emperor from the antiquity Dao court resounded through the sky. Chapter 2296. The words of the Xuexing battle arch almost made the faces of the big shots, who were originally planning to retreat, turn green. They were only here to watch the ceremony. Even if they had a good relationship with the imperial clan, their enemy this time was a ferocious great Emperor Juing, a ruthless man who had slaughtered countless martial emperors in the nirvana of freedom. He was able to walk out of the nirvana of freedom alive after being attacked by a group of 5th and 6th level martial emperors. Who would dare to offend such an existence? Furthermore, he wasn't alone. The black-robed woman and the ferocious Big Yellow were not simple characters. However, Battle Emperor Xuexing had used the banner of Heavenly Monarch Sure to suppress them. In addition, they were under the watchful eyes of the crowd. If they were to retreat just like that, they would definitely offend the Emperor clan, the Kong clan. As such, although they wanted to curse the Kong clan's mothers in their hearts, no one dared to take the lead and retreat. Someone had an idea and quickly transmitted his voice. Taoist Lin, I don't want to be your enemy. If we really fight later, please show mercy. I promise I won't really fight against you. Lin Sun had a strange look in his eyes, but he still nodded slightly. This caused the man to feel as if a great burden had been lifted from his shoulders. He was wild with joy, but his expression was filled with a murderous aura. Of course, it was only for show. In reality, this person did not know that at this moment, more than a dozen big shots from different forces were transmitting their voices to Lin Sun, begging for mercy in a humble and helpless tone. It was obvious that these big shots who were on good terms with the Imperial clan were not reliable in a real battle. Kill. In the blink of an eye, the battle had erupted a long time ago. The great figures of the Kong clan were the most ferocious, and they attacked furiously. Imperial might emanated from their entire bodies, and they were like numerous erupting volcanoes that caused this expanse of the heavens and the earth to fall into unrest. Battle Emperor Xuexing from the primitive Dao court also made his move. He waved a long spear that was as bright as silver, pointing at the sky and hitting the ground. He was a 4th-level martial emperor and knew his limits, so he rushed towards Xiaji. Lin Sun was a peak great emperor and had killed many 4th-level martial emperors. Big Yellow was a dog, but his arrogant attitude made Lin Sun think that he could fight against a 6th-level martial emperor. He was not to be trifled with. Therefore, the Xuexing battle emperor made his move against Xiaji. To put it simply, he had no intention of putting his life on the line for the Emperor Clan Kong clan. The reason why he ordered the heroes to attack together with him was because he believed that this was the territory of the Emperor Clan Kong clan. Although Lin Sun and the others were strong, they weren't strong enough to shake an ancient Emperor clan. Big Yellow cast a sidelong glance and crouched in the void without moving. It thought that it would be too embarrassing if it got involved in such a small matter. Kill! Someone rushed towards Lin Sun. It was a big shot from another force. He was aggressive and full of thunder and lightning. It's the Amethyst Mountain's Qi Long Sword Emperor. I didn't expect him to be so brave as to directly attack the Dao Yuan Emperor. Someone cried out in shock, attracting the attention of countless people. All of them were shocked by the Qi Long Sword Emperor's elegance. But who would have thought that as soon as Lin Sun waved his hand, the mighty Qi Long Sword Emperor staggered back thousands of meters before everyone could see it clearly. His face was pale, and he coughed up blood. He uttered an unwilling and bitter voice. The Dao Yuan Emperor is indeed worthy of being the first great emperor in the last 100,000 years. I'm no match for him. Fellow Taoists of the Emperor Clan Kong clan, it's not that I don't want to fight, but I'm seriously injured. Farewell. Before his voice died away, the Qi Long Sword Emperor teleported away in the void. He escaped faster than anyone else. He didn't look like a seriously injured person at all. Everyone was dumbfounded and their hearts trembled. Was the Dao Yuan Emperor really so strong? The corner of Lin Sun's mouth twitched. This guy was a drama queen. He hadn't even released his attack just now. The big shots who had the same thoughts as the Qi Long Sword Emperor looked at the place where the Qi Long Sword Emperor left with envy. Then, they looked at Lin Sun with fiery eyes. Their eyes seemed to say, "Fellow Taoist, please cooperate with us and help us escape from the sea of suffering." Lin Sun found it funny, but he didn't refuse. So, in the following time, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the big shots of the Emperor realm who rushed to deal with Lin Sun either flew backward with blood spurting out of their mouths and noses, or cried out in pain and staggered back. Or, those scenes are just like real. In fact, who would dare to believe that the big shots of the Emperor realm would resort to such shameless trickery in order not to get involved? A bunch of drama queens. This was Big Yellow's evaluation. What kind of existence was he? He could see through those little tricks at a glance. His dog face was full of disdain. He sighed in his heart that the Emperor realm nowadays was really becoming more and more unsightly. Boom. At the same time, with Xia Zhi's expedition, the big shots of the Emperor Clan Kong clan who besieged her were killed without hesitation. She seemed to remember Big Yellow's reminder. When she killed her opponents, she almost always kept their bodies intact. Every time she killed one, she would casually collect it like harvesting crops. While harvesting, she put it into a bag. Bang. She waved her spear, and the remaining Shu Xing War Emperor was shaken and staggered back. His arm was almost blown up, and the pain was unbearable. He couldn't help but be shocked. He thought that he had chosen an opponent who could be resisted. Who would have thought that this black-robed woman's combat power was so strong? Damn Emperor Clan Kong clan. Why haven't those old things come out yet? Do they really want to see me killed before they show up? At this moment, Shu Xing War Emperor also regretted his impulsiveness. He shouldn't have stood up so early. Bang. Soon, he was hit by a spear again. His chest collapsed, and his eyes darkened. He almost fell out of the void. Seeing that he was about to be killed by Xia Zhi, a loud shout came from Mount Tianhui in the distance. "How dare you, a little evil of Mount Mind, come to my Kong clan and make trouble? You're courting death." The voice shook the world, revealing endless majesty. Faster than the voice, a purple flying knife, dazzling and boundless, like a streamer shooting from the universe, cut through the void and chopped at Xia Zhi at an incredible speed. Lin Sun's black eyes narrowed slightly. This kind of power made him feel danger. There was no doubt that the old monster who attacked must be a terrifying existence above the 6th level of Emperor Realm. At the same time, Yellow, who had been squatting there, moved. He disappeared in an instant and appeared in front of Xia Zhi, slapping her with his paw. Bang! The dazzling purple flying knife, like a fly being swatted, buzzed and flew out, shaking incessantly. Everyone was stunned. This big yellow dog was so fierce. It was also at this moment that people saw from Mount Tianhui, one after another, majestic figures suffused with the terrifying light of Emperor Realm. With their appearance, the world trembled, all things rustled, and the sun and moon lost their light. It felt as if one god after another had come out of the legends and descended to the world. At this time, in the area near Mount Tianhui, except for Lin Sun, Xia Ji, and Yellow, there was no one else. The practitioners who came to watch the ceremony had all hidden far away. The world was silent, and all eyes were fixed on the sky above Mount Tianhui. There were more than 10 old fogies from the Imperial Kong clan. War Emperor Xuexing was also relieved, and he felt lucky as if he had escaped from death. But at this moment, a dazzling spear shadow suddenly appeared, illusory and blurred. Puff! In the eyes of everyone, War Emperor Xuexing, a 4th-level Emperor Realm Elder of the Primitive Path, had his throat pierced with a single strike. Then, his body exploded into pieces. This extremely bloody scene was like the most direct and violent provocation, and it caused all the old monsters of the Kong clan who walked out of Mount Tianhui to be furious. Rumble. The will on their bodies spread like a landslide and a tsunami, covering and enveloping the area. The boundless killing intent caused the mountains and rivers in all directions to tremble and shake. Shut up. Suddenly, among the old monsters from the Imperial Kong clan, a white-haired old man with a sage-like appearance shouted in exasperation. Crack! But Yellow had caught the purple flying knife in his mouth, and he bit it with his ghastly white teeth. The purple flying knife was directly bitten into several pieces. Puff! The white-haired old monster spat out blood. The purple flying knife was his life imperial weapon, and he was also affected by the destruction of his imperial weapon. Everyone was shocked. This big dog was too ferocious. Its teeth were sharp and could easily bite through imperial weapons. Lin Sun gasped. He dared not imagine how miserable it would be if he was bitten by Yellow. Crack. Crack. While chewing the pieces of the purple flying knife, Yellow said disdainfully, 2 7th-level Emperor Realm, 1 8th-level Emperor Realm, 5 6th-level Emperor Realm, and the rest are all below the 6th-level Emperor Realm. How dare you come out to embarrass yourself with such little strength? His voice resounded through the sky, full of incomparable contempt. This almost drove the people watching from afar crazy. Who would have thought that a dog would dare to look down on the Kong clan's old ancestor? You're courting death. Hurry up and kill this evil beast. Don't let any of them escape. The dozen or so Emperor Realm experts of the Kong clan were livid with anger, and their killing intent surged. One by one, they took out their Emperor weapons and charged towards Lin Sun and the others. I'll deal with those old bastards. You deal with the others. As he spoke, Yellow's figure also rushed out, releasing a monstrous and terrifying Emperor Realm aura. He was obviously a dog, but he gave people the feeling of a supreme Emperor Realm descending to the world with boundless power. Boom! He waved his paws, and the law of great ways intertwined into rolling thunderbolts. Like divine chains of order, they rumbled and spread out. In a flash, they blocked the 8 and the 2 7th-level Emperor Realm old monsters and suppressed them. Xia Ji, finish this quickly, Lin Sun said quickly. At this moment, Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep and surging with the flames of battle. The imposing aura around his body changed abruptly, and it connected with the heavens and the earth. His entire body glowed dazzlingly while an endless rain of light poured down, causing the heavens and the earth to dim. The experts watching this scene in the dark were all frightened, their scalps tingling, and their faces changed completely. Was this the demeanor of Great Emperor Juin? Chapter 2297. Boom! Summer Solstice was the first to attack. Her attack was simple and direct, like the shadow of the eternal night. Her battle spear was as white as snow. Her aura wasn't shocking, but it was unstoppable. Her movements were swift and fierce, and in the blink of an eye, she was engaged in an intense battle with several emperors. At the same time, Lin Sun launched an attack. Whoosh! The broken blade swept out and set off an unparalleled divine radiance that resembled a galaxy. With just one strike, an old monster of the 5th level of the Emperor realm staggered backwards. "Hurry! Let's suppress this child together," the old monster roared. Immediately, 7 or 8 emperors rushed over, all of them brimming with murderous intent. The aura they exuded was enough to crush the sky. Lin Sun's figure flashed, and the 5 Tau forms whizzed out, each holding the lifeless seal, the lawless saber, the directionless flag, the gourd of origin, and the starry sky map. Among them, the gourd of origin and the starry sky, 1000 phenomenon diagram, were taken from the Dark Child. They could be said to be miraculous ancient treasures among Emperor weapons, and they were extremely powerful. While Lin Sun was manipulating the broken blade, he also released the Tower of Endless Tau and swept across the field. If they were not Lin's enemies, they could never imagine how horrible this scene was. A peerless great emperor, surrounded by 5 great path forms and wielding all kinds of unbelievably terrifying imperial weapons, swept through the battlefield. In an instant, the light from the treasures was like a tide, and the sound of the Tao was like thunder, drowning the entire area. Dang! A green copper bell that was intertwined with the laws of Emperor Tao flashed over, yet it was blasted flying by the lifeless seal. It buzzed and trembled violently, and many markings appeared on the surface of the copper bell. The one controlling the green bell was an old monster of the 5th level Emperor realm. He looked like a young man and was extremely powerful. He retreated without hesitation. But at this moment, the Scarlet Fire Taoist body charged at him with his blade, making it impossible for him to dodge. He could only face it head-on. A green sun-like light wheel appeared in front of him. Puff! There was a flash of saber light, and the green wheel was completely ignored by the lawless saber. The old monster's head was sliced off by the saber aura. Swish! Fresh blood sprayed as his body and head were instantly crushed into powder and drowned by the surging torrent of saber chi. In the blink of an eye, he was at the 5th tier of the Emperor's Slayer realm. This scene caused the eyes of those old fellows from the Imperial Ancestor Kong clan to almost split apart with rage, and all of them simply seemed as if they'd gone mad. But this was not the end. At the same time, on another battlefield, Xia Ji's spear tore through the defenses of a 4th level Emperor realm cultivator like a hot knife through butter. His body was torn into pieces and exploded in the void. Far away, those who witnessed the bloody scene and saw the 4th and 5th level Emperor realm old monsters of the Kong clan being killed by Lin Sun and Xia Ji caused chills to run down their spines. Too strong. No words could describe such an unparalleled slaughter. How supreme and extraordinary were Emperor realm figures. They looked down upon the world and looked down upon all. But now, they were falling like rain. First, Burning Snow Sword Emperor, Xuexing Battle Emperor, and the others were killed. Now, a 4th and 5th level Emperor were killed as well. This was undoubtedly too terrifying. After all, who had ever seen emperors fall in the past? One might not even see it once in a million years, but the bloody scene of Emperor's Fall was playing out incessantly in front of Mount Tianhui of the Imperial Ancestor Kong clan. The heavens and the earth shook, and the restrictions on Mount Tianhui roiled before they were able to disperse the terrifying aftershock of the battle. On the other hand, the heavens and the earth were collapsing, all things were being crushed into powder, and space was falling into disorder. Some cultivators below the Imperial Ancestor realm couldn't see what was really going on, or perhaps they'd been horrified to the point of trembling and their knees going weak. If they hadn't hidden extremely far away, then the consequences would absolutely be unimaginably severe. Awu! A thunderous roar resounded in the sky. It was like the roar of a dragon or the roar of a tiger, and it resounded through the heavens and the earth. It shook everyone to the point their heads felt like they were on the verge of exploding. Big Yellow charged into the sky, while his fur emanated a myriad of rays of light. He was like an exalt amongst beasts, and his hooves tore through space in an extremely violent manner. As he charged, the terrifying scene of the sun sinking and the moon setting appeared in the sky, and it seemed like the heavens were collapsing. Peerless light of the Tao completely enveloped the area. The two 7th and 8th level Imperial ancestors of the Imperial Ancestor Kong clan possessed terrifying might, and a casual attack from them could throw the world into chaos and split yin and yang. But now, they were firmly suppressed by Big Yellow. This shocked and infuriated them. They didn't dare believe that such a ferocious and terrifying Big Yellow could exist in the world. He was simply heaven-defying. If I didn't want to stew all of you in one piece, I would have killed all of you a long time ago. Big Yellow's voice rumbled, and it was filled with contempt and disdain. It had a kind of conceit, as if it was the most supreme being in the world. That kind of domineering, arrogant, and wild attitude appeared on the body of a dog, and it gave people a feeling that it was especially shocking. The three ancestors of the Imperial Ancestor Kong clan flew into a rage out of humiliation. They felt as if their pride had been trampled on, and their killing intent shot into the sky as if they'd gone mad. Rumble. The battle in the sky became even more intense, and it was a chaotic and turbulent scene. Not to mention ordinary people, even ordinary Emperor Realm cultivators, couldn't see what was happening in the sky. The battle was simply too supreme and unparalleled. At the same time, Xia Ji was fighting with two 5th level Emperor Realm and one 6th level Emperor Realm Old Monster. Although she was surrounded, she wasn't suppressed. Her spear swept horizontally through the battlefield while her entire body was coiled with a rain of laws that seemed like eternal darkness. Every single move she made was extremely simple, yet it carried peerless murderous might, and it caused space to wail and tremble. On the other side, Lin Sun was besieged by a total of 8 old monsters. Compared to Xia Ji, Lin Sun was undoubtedly a greater threat. His main body and his 5 doppelgangers were attacking together, and each of them wielded an incomparably mystical emperor weapon. Their combat strength was shocking, and their killing intent was overwhelming. It was a scene rarely seen in tens of thousands of years. If it were any other Emperor Realm cultivator, they would have been easily killed by the old monsters of the Imperial Ancestor Kong clan. The power of the 8 Emperor Realm ancestors was too terrifying. Many sects wouldn't be able to gather 8 Emperor Realm leaders. Only a primordial Emperor clan like the Kong clan would be able to dispatch so many old monsters with frightening foundations at once. Facing such a siege, there was no sadness or joy in Lin Sun's eyes. His broken blade was like lightning, mist, and illusion. It flickered on the battlefield with astonishing killing intent. The Tower of Endless Tao was even more terrifying. Every time it pressed down, a magnificent rain of light would flow, and it had the power to destroy the 9 heavens and suppress 3,000 worlds. It seemed indestructible, and there was nothing it couldn't break. Any power in front of it would be crushed and blown away. Lin Sun himself was developing his own Tao and laws. Open. As he took a deep breath, a great abyss appeared around him, and the Emperor Tao rumbled as if it could shatter all things in the world. Whoosh! Sword Tao. 9 inches eternal destruction. This sword slashed out. Mountains and rivers shattered, and the sun and moon turned upside down. It was like a Kuan Peng attacking 3,000 worlds, and the Milky Way rolling back and shattering the void. The combined attack of the 8 old monsters was instantly broken by this sword. They retreated dozens of feet as if they were struck by lightning. Then, the sword chi was unstoppable, and it slashed down in front of 6th level Emperor Realm Old Monster. The old monster roared, took out his Emperor weapon, and hurriedly dodged. Clang! The sword was blocked. But before the old monster could heave a sigh of relief, the lifeless seal, the directionless flag, and the Tower of Endless Tao attacked from different directions. No! He screamed in terror and despair. The next moment, he was killed, and his body exploded. Even his spiritual soul was crushed. When he was in nirvana of freedom, Lin Sun could fight against a group of 5th level and 6th level Emperor Realm old monsters with his own strength without the use of Emperor weapons. But now, he attacked with the support of many Emperor weapons. The power was naturally not something that could be compared to when he was barehanded. A single sword had shaken the 8 old monsters. 6th level Emperor Slayer realm. This kind of earth-shattering power directly shocked everyone silly. The second one, Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep as he spoke indifferently. Then, he took a step forward in the air. His main body and his 5 doppelgangers moved together, like a peerless, sharp awl that could crush anything in its path. The remaining 7 old monsters of the Kong clan were a little scared, but they still fought back. This was the lair of the Kong clan, the place where their clan lived and thrived. They had no choice but to fight with their lives on the line. 8 Wilderness, True Self, Sword Principle. Wind and Thunder Warhammer. Yin and Yang Great Sky Seal. Divine Arts, Taoist Arts, and Emperor weapons came from all directions and bombarded Lin Sun. But Lin Sun did not rely on brute force. His figure flickered, his main body and his 5 doppelgangers fought together, and sometimes they split up to attract the enemy's power. They came and went in an unpredictable manner. In the midst of the battle, Lin Sun's main body had already appeared in front of a 5th level Emperor Realm old monster. It was a graceful, beautiful, and cold woman. When she sensed Lin Sun's appearance, she had no time to manipulate the Emperor weapon she had just taken out. She formed a seal with both hands and struck at Lin Sun. Emperor's true scripture, Red Sun Burning Seal. The third one, Lin Sun did not care. He did not dodge and punch down from the sky. Bang! The red seal exploded in an instant. The surging fist energy was like a dragon returning to the abyss, unstoppable. In an instant, all defenses and treasures were broken, and the beautiful woman was crushed into a bloody mist from head to toe. Not a single piece of her body could be found. As for the protective law, it was like a piece of paper in front of this fist. At this moment, the other 6 emperors were not only terrified, but also felt like they had fallen into an ice cave. Only when they fought Lin Sun, a peak great emperor, head-on, would they understand how terrifying he was. Lin Sun could easily break their attacks and kill the emperor as if he was killing a chicken. This meant that Lin Sun's strength was far above theirs. Even if he was only at the 1st level of the Emperor realm, his real combat strength had reached an incredible level. Most terrifying of all, the treasures he possessed were also heaven-defying, which increased his overall combat strength by a large margin. Even a lawless existence like the 6th level Emperor realm would suffer a fatal blow when facing Lin Sun. At this moment, they looked at the mighty yellow in the sky, and Xia Ji, who was fighting against several Emperor realm old monsters not far away. And then they looked at the invincible Lin Sun. Even the cultivators that were watching this scene from extremely far away couldn't help but feel terrified and coldness surge into their hearts. Chapter 2298. A man, a woman, and a dog stood in front of Mount Tianhui, fighting until the sky darkened and blood flowed like a river. This was supposed to be the Wisdom King ceremony that was held once every 1,000 years by the Imperial Kong family. It was supposed to be a grand occasion where guests from all over gathered. But now, it was a scene of bloody destruction like purgatory. This was something that no one had expected. After all, the Kong family was a famed, far ancient imperial clan. It was so powerful that it could stand shoulder to shoulder with the 6 great Dao courts. The power of such a great clan was enough to make the emperors fear and respect them. They dared not offend them easily. But today, Lin Sun, Xia Ji, and Goldie had come directly to the Kong family's mountain gate and set off a bloody storm. What was most inconceivable was that in the current situation, the Imperial Kong clan was actually showing signs of being suppressed. Ordinary cultivators aside, even the emperors who came from all over were dumbfounded and felt a chill run down their spine. The battle was still going on. Lin Sun's attacks were getting fiercer and fiercer. Boom! Treasure light flowed and Dao light surged. In front of Mount Tianhui, it was a scene of destruction and destruction. Not long after, a 5th level emperor was torn apart by thousands of shadows that rushed out of the Origin Spirit Gourd with a shrill scream. His flesh and soul were instantly devoured and refined by the starry sky atlas. The 4th, Lin Sun said indifferently, It was like a note of death, sending chills down everyone's spines. But right at this moment, an expanse of five-color divine radiance suddenly floated up into appearance from the distant Sky Radiance Mountain, and it shot into the nine heavens. In an instant, it seemed to have dyed this expanse of the sky in a boundlessly gorgeous five-colored light. At the same time, a terrifying aura spread out from the depths of Mount Tianhui. Goldie, who was fighting in the sky, narrowed his eyes and shouted, "Kid, girl, the situation is urgent. Pull back." As the voice rang out, Goldie pressed down with his paw, as if he was desperate. He condensed a giant palm print that contained thousands of great Tao laws and reflected the images of all worlds in the sky. It was boundlessly terrifying. Bang! The eighth-level emperor of the Kong family tried his best to resist, but his emperor weapon was sent flying. His entire body was enveloped by the palm print and gripped tightly. Whoosh! Big Yellow's figure had already moved to the void and rushed towards Lin Sun. He was in a hurry as if but was on fire. "Let's go." Saying this, it scooped up Xia Ji, who was fighting and was about to take Lin away. He saw the ball of dazzling brilliance burst out in front of Lin, like a big sun exploding in front of him. It was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. At this instant, the heavens and the earth seemed to have stopped, and the order of the world seemed to have stopped for an instant as well. Forbidden passing divine ability. After hearing Big Yellow's reminder, Lin Sun noticed that the situation was bad, but he was not willing to leave just like that. As such, he planned to teach the Kong family an unforgettable lesson before he left. Boom! Along with the forbidden passing, Lin Sun also exerted all his strength to strike. There was no return. With his slash, the world seemed to be split apart. A dazzling sword chi streaked across the sky, traversing thousands of feet in an instant as if it had transcended time itself. In front of this invincible sword chi, the void seemed to not exist. Be it protective imperial weapons, peerless divine abilities, or mysterious secret arts, none of them existed. Bang! 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 A fifth-level emperor was the first to be killed. His entire being was crushed by the sword chi, his body and soul destroyed. Then, as the sword chi crushed down, the Emperor Realm old monsters were torn apart one after another. They were slaughtered like fish on a chopping board, unable to resist at all. However, before the sword chi completely fell, Lin Sun was grabbed by Big Yellow, who tore the sky apart and disappeared. In the end, of the 8 Emperor Realm old monsters that surrounded Lin Sun, only a 6th-level Emperor managed to escape. But he was clearly frightened. He stood in the void, dumbfounded, unable to believe what had just happened. Lin Sun's sword had killed 4 Emperor Realm old monsters in an instant. Only one was left. Rumble. The heavens and earth rumbled as the chaotic and turbulent battle continued to spread. But Lin Sun, Xia Ji, and Big Yellow were nowhere to be seen. Just as they disappeared, the 5-colored divine radiance that rushed out from the depths of Mount Tianhui coalesced into a majestic figure that stood between the heavens and earth. The 5-colored divine radiance intertwined with each other, making him look like a god. Upon closer inspection, it was a man that looked like a young man. He wore 5-colored robes, and his eyes were as bright as the sun. His entire body exuded an aura that made the heavens tremble. But his body was bound by purple chains that resembled pythons. The chains shimmered with mysterious and cryptic runes. It was a ghastly sight to behold. The shackles of my inner demons prevented me from going into battle right away, resulting in such a tragedy. I, Kong Ao Yin, have failed my ancestors. The 5-colored figure let out a long sigh filled with boundless hatred. It rumbled and shook the hearts of those who heard it. Far away, the mountains and rivers were in ruins, the earth was cracked, and all living things were dead. The air was filled with the pungent smell of blood. This scene caused his eyes to turn red while the shackles on his entire body swished. Moreover, his terrifying and seemingly material aura swept through the heavens and the earth, and it was oppressive to the point of being on the verge of suffocation. Bang! Bang! Some cultivators that were watching from extremely far away didn't even have the chance to react before their souls were blasted apart by the sound that swept out, and their bodies exploded into pieces while blood sprayed through the surroundings. In merely an instant, at least a few thousand people had suffered this unexpected calamity. Is the commotion of my Kong clan something that all of you can watch? Fuck off. Kong Outyen's voice had become cold. This expanse of the heavens and the earth droned and trembled while the mountains and plants in the distance rumbled and collapsed into pieces. For a time, countless cultivators bled from all 7 apertures while their minds were shattered by that voice, and they perished on the spot. Only those with formidable strengths were lucky enough to escape calamity. At this moment, all of them fled desperately. Even imperial emperors didn't dare stay here any longer. Ancestor. In the distance, the few remaining members of the Kong clan had grief and indignation on their faces. They stood before the desolate Sky Brilliance Mountain, and their hearts were filled with bitterness, rage, hatred, and various other emotions. Earlier, Lin Sun, the woman, and the dog had utterly defeated them, and they'd suffered ceaselessly from the battle. This blow was too severe, and the Kong clan didn't even have half of the Imperial Emperors left. It was too tragic. Someone had come looking for them, yet they'd still been able to escape safely in the end. This wasn't just a matter of losing face. It might even shake the foundation of the Kong clan. Kong Outyen remained silent for a moment before he asked, "Where's Qing Xian?" Someone revealed an ashamed and furious expression as he informed Kong Outyen in a low voice. So this Qing Xian was that old monster at the 8th level of the Imperial Emperor realm that Big Yellow had captured. He was captured alive. Kong Outyen's entire body trembled while the violet shackles that covered his body rattled. I'll absolutely not let this matter rest. The day I break through the shackles of my inner demons will be the day that Lin Daoyuan is killed. After a while, Kong Outyen flicked his sleeves, turned, and disappeared into the void. The remaining old monsters of the Kong clan looked at each other in dismay. All of them looked as if they'd lost their parents, and their faces were so gloomy that it looked like they were about to drip water. In today's Wisdom King ritual, their Imperial Kong clan had lost a great deal of face. In this battle, the Kong clan had lost 4 6th level Imperial Emperors, 5 5th level Imperial Emperors, and a total of 7 4th level Imperial Emperors. In front of Sky Brilliance Mountain, the scene was as bloody as a painting. When the news spread, the Brahma Earth Great World was in an uproar, and countless cultivators were shaken. When the news spread to the Starry Ancient Path, it caused another round of commotion. One should know that the news of what happened in Nirvanic Paradise half a month ago was still fermenting and spreading in the myriad heavens. Now that such a huge piece of news had spread, it was like pouring oil on the fire. The Daoyuan Emperor is still alive. Heavens, doesn't this mean that the Starry Ancient Path is destined to be chaotic in the future? None of those 5th and 6th level Imperial Emperors who besieged the Daoyuan Emperor in Nirvanic Paradise made it out alive. Does this mean that they've been killed by the Daoyuan Emperor? How powerful is the Emperor Kong clan? Who would have thought that the Daoyuan Emperor would come knocking on their doors and kill their Imperial Emperors like rain? How could the Daoyuan Emperor be so powerful? Supposedly, Kong Outyen, the progenitor of the Kong clan who'd been in charge of the Kong clan since the primeval times, wasn't able to kill the Daoyuan Emperor. All sorts of discussions shook the starry sky like landslides and tsunamis, and it shocked countless cultivators. It also caused countless sects to tremble in fear and worry, especially the ancient sects like the 6 great Dao courts and 10 great war clans. When they found out about the tragic fate of the Emperor Kong clan, all of them fell into a state of shock. It was undeniable that the current Lin Sun had become a threat that they had no choice but to take seriously in fear. A calamity that caused them to be unable to eat and sleep in peace. While this news was still spreading, the vast universe arc that carried Lin Sun, Xie Ji, and Big Yellow had already left the Brahma Earth world and was charging towards the depths of the cosmic void. On the treasured ship, a spear that was 18 meters long was placed on a bonfire, and a multicolored peacock that was roasted to the point it was dripping with oil was skewered on the spear. Lin Sun was holding a brush made from peacock feathers, and he was dipping it into the seasonings as he ceaselessly brushed the roasted meat. His movements were skilled, and as he smeared the meat, the fragrance of the meat mixed with the fragrance of the various seasonings. The fragrance that suffused the air was so tempting that it could simply sink into the depths of one's soul. Big Yellow was squatting at the side, and his eyes were staring blankly as saliva flowed out of his mouth like a stream. It was too fragrant. Just look at the translucent and tender meat. Under the roasting of the myriad flames of the way, it was slowly turning brown, and the oil seeped out and slid down while emitting a sizzling sound. Even the sound was so pleasing to the ear, and it caused one's heart to itch unbearably. Leave this pair of wings and claws to me, and the neck as well. It looks delicious. Big Yellow couldn't help but pick up a spiritual object that looked like a sugar cane and nibble on it as a dessert before the main meal. He was too hungry, and he felt like he could eat an entire cow with a single bite. I want to hear, and hear. Xiaji stretched out her snow-white fingers that were as slender as suet jade and pointed at the peacock meat. Her clear eyes were also burning like flames, and they shone brightly. If others knew that the peacock being roasted was a multicolored peacock with a cultivation of the third level of the Emperor realm, their eyeballs would probably fall out of their sockets. After all, on this ancient path of the starry sky, who had ever heard of anyone daring to use the body of a great emperor from the Kong family as roasted meat? Chapter 2299. Soon, the entire cabin was filled with the enticing aroma of barbecue. Not ready yet. Big Yellow wagged his tail impatiently. Xiaji had prepared plates and chopsticks, as well as some divine wine. Soon, Lin Sun sprinkled some heavenly fire pepper powder, regarded as one of the 3 divine treasures, and smeared a layer of Emperor Bee jelly on the burnt and oily peacock meat. Suddenly, the enticing aroma became more and more wonderful. This was a peacock at the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. Its meat was crystal clear and contained the essence of spiritual energy. Now that it was roasted by Lin Sun with all kinds of rare condiments, the aroma alone was enough to make all the gluttons in the world fall for it. It's ready. As soon as Lin Sun finished his words, Big Yellow rushed up at once. He tore off a part of Lin Sun's wing in spite of the heat. His teeth were crisscrossed, and his mouth was full of oil. The meat he chewed emanated dazzling divine radiance, and it was crystalline and translucent. The taste buds at the tip of his tongue simply felt as if they'd exploded, causing Big Yellow to feel refreshed to the point its entire body shivered while its eyes were filled with an intoxicated expression. On the other side, Xiaji also started. She held a large piece of thigh meat in her white hands, her cheeks as white as porcelain. When Lin Sun was ready to eat, there was only half of the big roast peacock left. Fragrant, so damn fragrant. Big Yellow was elated and didn't hesitate to praise. I finally understand why Master couldn't help but eat 2 bowls of peacock meat soup that year. This thing is absolutely the best in the world. Big Yellow was not slow even when he was talking. He stuffed pieces of meat into his mouth, not even sparing the bones. Ji didn't say anything, but she showed her approval of the meat with her actions. The plate beside her was already piled high with bones. Lin Sun was also savoring the taste. While drinking and eating, his soul was satisfied. He felt like he was about to ascend to the heavens. The flesh of a 3rd-level Emperor Realm peacock could be considered to be a peerless treasure. It contained the essence of Emperor Realm energy that surged like an ocean. Ordinary cultivators would probably explode immediately if they ate a single bite, because they wouldn't be able to endure the impact of such energy. Only emperors like Lin Sun, Xiaji, and Big Yellow dared to enjoy the delicacies so heartily. In less than a quarter of an hour, the whole peacock meat was divided up. Big Yellow smacked its lips as if it had not had enough. "Young fella, why don't you roast another one? I've never had such a good and satisfying meal all these years." Lin Sun was refining the power in the barbecue. Hearing this, he said angrily, "If you want to eat, go barbecue by yourself. What a joke. This kind of roasted meat was not simple. He had to constantly control the temperature of the myriad Tao flames, and he had to do his best to preserve the meat that contained the essence of the third level of the Emperor realm. He had to do his best to preserve the meat that contained the essence of the third level of the Emperor realm. In short, it was no different from concocting pills. It consumed a lot of energy. Xia Ji was already very satisfied with the meal. She directly laid down on a soft couch covered with multicolored peacock feathers and fell asleep. Big Yellow sighed and picked up a slender bone with its paw to pick its teeth. It crossed its legs lazily and said longingly, "Aren't we going to the world of true dragon this time? What do you think the meat of a true dragon tastes like?" Lin Sun's body stiffened. This dog was so crazy that it wanted to eat dragon meat. Dragon's liver and phoenix's gallbladder are considered to be the most delicious food in the world. Since the ancient times, it is unknown how many overlords have wanted to have a taste of it. Since we have the opportunity to go to the true dragon world, how can we miss it? Big Yellow looked at Lin Sun with eager eyes full of expectation. No way. Lin Sun refused flatly. Jing Xian was still in the world of true dragon, and half of the blood of a true dragon flowed in her body. How could she eat the meat of her relatives and friends? That was too crazy. Big Yellow sighed regretfully and said, "Well, we caught a lot of peacocks this time. I want to eat peacock stew, fried peacocks, steamed peacocks, fried peacocks." As it said, it drooled again. Lin Sun rolled his eyes. In the following period of time, the vast universe arc traversed across the starry sky, one star area after another, and one world after another. The journey was peaceful, and they didn't encounter any more twists and turns. Lin Sun and the others had a peaceful and fulfilling life. Both Big Yellow and Xia Ji felt very happy during this period of time. Every day, Lin Sun would cook the captured peacock meat in different ways, such as stir-frying, stewing, steaming, braising, with all kinds of spiritual vegetables and seasonings. He made a variety of different flavors, and all of them were first-class delicacies. Later, Lin Sun kept some of the best peacock meat, such as the 5-color peacock at the 8th level of the Emperor realm. He planned to cook a delicious meal for Jing Xian when he met her. The rest of the peacock meat was marinated into jerky that could be eaten at any time. The only thing that surprised Lin Sun was that his strength had improved a lot after eating the 5-color peacock meat for so many days. He was only one step away from attaining the perfection of the unobtrusive realm. According to Big Yellow, eating so much peacock meat was like eating furnace after furnace of peerless divine medicine. If it was any other first-level emperor, they would have tried to break through long ago. But Lin Sun's cultivation had only increased by one level. Big Yellow had to admit that Great Emperor Ju Yin was no ordinary monster. Moreover, Lin Sun wasn't an ordinary peerless Great Emperor. He could be called a monster among monsters. 20 days later, Longhuan Galaxy, treasured origin world. After Lin Sun and the others arrived on the vast universe arc, they finally arrived at the banks of the Cloud Mist Galaxy after several hours of scouting. The river was vast and mighty, as if it came from the heavens. It meandered like a giant dragon, and from a bird's-eye view, one could vaguely see a strange scrawl of the word fate on the river. In treasured origin world, the Cloud Mist Galaxy was regarded as the first forbidden area. The reason for this was that the vicinity of the river was covered in terrifying thunder and lightning all year round. Anyone who entered the river, regardless of their cultivation, would be lost in it. This place is very strange. As soon as they arrived, Big Yellow showed a strange expression. The power of heaven and earth is completely distorted and turned into a violent torrent of order. Ordinary emperors really can't enter it. It's really strange. Heaven and earth are reversed, and the Great Way is subverted. If people enter it, they will suffer all kinds of disasters and killing. Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep. After a moment of careful observation, he took out the map and compared it with the scene in front of him. After a quarter of an hour, their figures appeared in an area of turbulent thunder, where whirlpools emerged in the river, making people's heart palpitate. This was the Tongxian ferry marked on the map, and there was a path to the Xinxian Ridge, where the Xian family was located. Just as Lin Sun was searching for the ferry, suddenly, a boat emerged from a whirlpool in the river. A young man stood on it with a smile and waved to Lin Sun. "The famous Dao Yuan Emperor, you're finally here." This young man was Xian Jiuyin. He flew over on the boat and looked up and down at Lin Sun, saying, "You haven't changed much. I thought you would have 3 heads and 6 arms after becoming Emperor Zhu Shui." Lin Sun laughed. "You've been waiting for me for a long time?" Xian Jiuyin shook his head and said with a smile, "Whenever someone appears in front of the ferry, he will be noticed by the Xian family. It's a coincidence. Today, on a whim, I pinched my fingers and saw an auspicious sign, implying the arrival of a distinguished guest. So I came in person, and sure enough, I saw the most dazzling Emperor Zhu Shui in the starry sky. He was full of nonsense, and his temperament was still as free and easy as before. But soon, he transmitted a voice to Lin. "Brother Lin, before entering my Xian family, there's one thing I have to remind you. No matter which force in this world, there is never a lack of faction struggle, and my Xian family is no exception. My father originally intended to invite you as a guest, but some stubborn and conservative old things in the clan are very resistant and opposed." Lin Sun couldn't help but frown. According to Xian Jiuyin, the reason why some old people in the Xian family rejected him as a guest was related to Shi Tiandi. Everyone knew that he was the only person Shi Tiandi had ordered to be wanted. The old people in the Xian family were quite afraid of this, worried that if they got involved with Lin Sun, the Xian family would also be implicated and be hated by Shi Tiandi. In this regard, Xian Shanshan, the head of the Xian family, was extremely disdainful. He thought that with the foundation of the Xian family, there was no need to be afraid of Shi Tiandi. He even said that the dignified Xian family did not dare to let a young man as a guest, which was simply a disgrace to their ancestors. "So, I came the wrong time?" Lin Sun collected his thoughts and asked calmly. Xian Jiuyin laughed and said heroically, "Don't worry, my father said that if anyone dares to stop you, he will break his dog legs." "Dog legs?" Big Yellow looked at him quietly. "Young man, be careful of your words." Xian Jiuyin was also a fearless person, but being stared at by Big Yellow, he felt scared and laughed awkwardly. Xian Jiuyin reminded again, "Brother Lin, if you really encounter any obstacle after entering the Xian family, you can show your strength. As long as you don't kill them, you can do whatever you want." Lin Sun frowned. "Didn't you say that no one dares to stop me?" Xian Jiuyin said seriously, "No one dares to stop you from entering the Xian family. But after you enter the Xian family, the situation will be different. Although my father is the patriarch, he can't cover the sky with one hand." After a pause, he continued, "But don't worry, my father said that as long as you show enough strength to make those old guys approve of you, they will not dare to tear off their faces and make things difficult for you." Lin Sun was silent. Seeing this, Xian Jiuyin couldn't help feeling anxious. "Brother Lin, I swear it's absolutely not to make things difficult for you. It's just that those old guys are too stubborn." Lin Sun said with a smile, "Okay, I understand. Hurry up and lead the way." If he was just a guest, Lin Sun would never agree after hearing such a proposal. Did a guest need approval? What kind of logic was this? Chapter 2300. Seeing that Lin Sun agreed, Xian Jiuyin also breathed a sigh of relief, but he was also very depressed. Originally, it was his father who took the initiative to invite Lin Sun to be a guest. Now, when Lin Sun came, he would be rejected and rejected. This was simply outrageous. But Xian Jiuyin also knew that the elders of Xian family were in a high position, and they couldn't be shaken by a young man like him. The group of people in the boat instantly disappeared in the depths of a whirlpool on the rolling Long River. When Lin Sun's vision recovered, he had already appeared in a secret realm. Fresh and auspicious immortal gang, Qi came to his face. There were beautiful mountains and clear waters everywhere, flowing springs and waterfalls, beautiful grasses and flowers, intelligent birds and beasts, and countless treasures of heaven and earth dotted every corner. It was really a pure land. In the center of the distant world, there were towering mountains. on which many palaces were built. Especially in the depths of the void of the mountains, there was a faintly discernible, powerful aura, as if it was a cave opened in space by someone with profound spiritual power. Good place. As far as Lin Sun's eyes could see, every inch of space in this world was full of pure and strong chaotic spiritual energy, purple evil spirit essence, star gang chi. 1 year cultivation here was probably equivalent to 10 years of cultivation in the outside world. This was Xian family. The mountains in the distance were the Shanxian Ridge. It was said that it was a holy mountain condensed by the power of the chaotic treasure, Shanxian treasure mirror, which was comparable to the divine green mountain of the black-yellow Taoist court. Brother Lin, although you have reached the Emperor realm, you must be careful. Those elders of Xian family also know that you are not comparable to ordinary Emperor realm, and they have even investigated your background. If someone dares to stop you, he must have something to rely on. After arriving here, Xian Jiuyin quickly reminded. Lin Sun nodded, looking as indifferent as before. As he spoke, a wave of fluctuation arose in space, and then a majestic and imposing figure floated up into appearance. His body seemed as if it was made from liquid bronze, and he had a resolute expression and a terrifying cold gaze. His entire body was bathed in dazzling violet Emperor Dao laws, and he seemed like a god that had descended to the world. Seventh uncle, Xian Jiuyin was stunned. He never expected that as soon as he entered the territory of Xian family, an unexpected person would appear so quickly. Xiaojiu, you should know what is going to happen. Just step aside. The robust man spoke with a powerful voice that carried a supreme, imposing aura. Then, he looked at Lin Sun and said, I'm Xian Yunheng, at the 5th level of Emperor Realm. People call me Sword Emperor Yunheng. Defeat me, and you can continue forward. His words were concise and comprehensive, and they were filled with indifference. Seventh uncle, don't tell me you don't know that the Dao Yuan Emperor has killed many old people in the 6th level of the Emperor Realm. For you to come like this, isn't it a little? Xian Jiuyin's expression was uncertain. How can those peers in the outside world compare to me? Xian Yunheng's eyes were suffused with a trace of disdain. Little Nine, do you know why members of our Xian clan dare to look down on the great powers of this ancient starry sky path? His tone was filled with incomparable pride. Because our surname is Xian, the power we control is also stronger than theirs. Xian Jiuyin nodded. Seventh uncle is right. But don't forget that you are at the 5th level of the Emperor Realm, and the Dao Yuan Emperor is only at the 1st level of the Emperor Realm. With your identity and status, you still came to make things difficult for a young man. Even if you win, don't you think you're embarrassing the Xian clan? He was really exasperated. Xian Yunheng's combat strength was indeed not comparable to an ordinary 5th level Emperor Realm cultivator. In fact, in this realm, he already had a terrifying foundation that was invincible. Xian Yunheng glanced at Xian Jiuyin coldly. You don't have to provoke me. In this starry sky, who doesn't know that Lin Sun is the first person to step into the Emperor Realm in 100,000 years? Who doesn't know that 20 days ago, the Tianhui mountain of the Imperial Kong clan was stained with blood? After a pause, he looked at Lin Sun again. It's because I think highly of you that I think you have the strength to make me fight. That's why I came first. The cold voice was terrifyingly calm. Now, do you dare to fight me? Big Yellow was about to say something, but he was stopped by Lin Sun. He looked at Xian Yunheng and said, After you, is there anyone else who wants to stand in my way? Xian Yunheng's expression was indifferent. Defeat me, and you will know. If you stop here, what's the point of knowing? Lin Sun nodded. I will only use one sword. If you can block it, I will immediately turn around and leave. In the dark, unknown to Lin Sun, some of the elders who noticed this scene all revealed astonished expressions. This Lin Daoyuan actually dared to look down on Xian Yunheng so much. Did he really think that he could look down on everyone in the starry sky after stepping into the absolute peak? Someone clapped his hands and laughed. Only those who have stepped into the Emperor Realm have such great courage. How can ordinary people understand this? One sword. Even Xian Yunheng frowned, his face full of frost. One sword. Lin Sun's words were calm. He was neither arrogant nor rash, neither arrogant nor conceited. However, that calm attitude made people not dare to underestimate him. Even if he was already furious in his heart, Xian Yunheng didn't be careless or underestimate Lin Sun, and he nodded and said, "Then let me experience the style of this sword." As he spoke, his robust body stretched out and instantly transformed into a 3 kilometers tall giant that stood towering in the heavens and the earth. His muscles bulged like numerous small hills, and they were suffused with a violent aura. His entire body was like a towering fiend god of legend that possessed monstrous might. The golden and brilliant divine radiance that effused out from his body illuminated the heavens and the earth, and the shadow that covered the heavens and the earth was projected down from his body. Big Yellow glanced at him and said, "His aura has entered the Tao, and his might has entered the truth realm. He really isn't someone an ordinary 5th-level Emperor Realm expert can compare to." Xie Ji and Xian Jiuyin had already moved away a long time ago. "Come, let me see how formidable this sword strike of yours is." Xian Yunheng spread his arms wide open and seemed to be able to cover the sky. His legs stood towering like pillars that held up the heavens, and the aura he emitted was terrifying to the point space started droning and wailing. Undoubtedly, he'd circulated his cultivation to the extreme. However, Lin Sun's black eyes were indifferent and emotionless, and he casually clenched his fist in the air as if he was drawing a sword. Along with this action of his, the heavens and the earth suddenly shook, and the air in the surroundings seemed to have been sucked out, while the 3 kilometers of space suddenly collapsed. In Lin Sun's palm, a dazzling and resplendent blade of a sword was drawn out inch by inch. The heavens and the earth trembled with every inch it was drawn out, and a strand of boundlessly murderous and fierce sword intent spread out in all directions, causing plants to be crushed into powder while the ground cracked like a spiderweb. Xian Yunheng's pupils flickered while his body faintly ached, and this caused him to be unable to help but be surprised. The combat instinct that he'd gained from many years of battles caused him to choose to attack at the first possible moment. Offense was the strongest defense in the world. Bang! He swung his arm that was thick like a mountain and smashed a fist towards Lin Sun. This fist was coiled with dense profundities of the great Tao, and it was heavy like a mountain. It was like a pillar of light that tore apart the sky and intended to crush the world. The surging power of the Emperor Realm pierced through the 9 heavens and 10 earths. At this moment, a 9-inch sword condensed in Lin Sun's palm and bloomed with sword energy that was thousands of meters long. It was like the first ray of light before the dawn of darkness, covering the universe and illuminating the heavens. 9-inch eternal destruction. The fist and the sword crossed each other, and the divine light rumbled, and the sound of Tao was like thunder. The fist that was powerful enough to crush mountains and rivers was split apart by a sword, and it turned into a rain of light that covered the sky and dissipated. Bang! The void shattered. After the sword energy slashed down, Xian Yunheng's huge body that was thousands of meters tall was chopped away and smashed into pieces of the void. In the end, he smashed onto the ground, leaving a huge human-shaped ravine on the ground and causing smoke and dust to fill the sky. With one sword, an old monster of the Xian family with a terrifying foundation in the 5th level of the Emperor Realm was chopped away. Xie Ji and Yellow were not surprised at all and looked calm. But it was the first time that Xian Jiuyin saw Lin Sun, who had stepped into the Emperor Realm, make a move. He was so shocked that his mouth opened wide and his pupils widened. So fierce. In the dark, this sword also shocked the hearts of countless old men of the Xian family, and they all had different expressions. Again, rumble. The ground cracked and shattered. The rocks were blasted into pieces, and a layer of clouds collapsed and dispersed. It shook the wind and clouds in all directions. Xian Yunheng charged out and stood in the sky, and his voice carried boundless rage. Lin Sun placed his hands behind his back and said with an expressionless face, "You can't even resist a single sword, so what qualifications do you have to be arrogant? It's time for you to move aside." Xian Yunheng gasped for breath while his expression changed indeterminately, and he flicked his sleeve after a long time before turning around and teleporting away. Seventh uncle, it's not a loss to be defeated by a sword strike of a peerless great emperor. Xian Juyin grinned as he shouted, and he seemed to be intentionally provoking Xian Yunheng. In the dark, the faces of countless old men of the Xian family darkened, and they glared at Xian Yunheng. This bastard is actually helping an outsider to ridicule a senior of the Xian family. Could it be that you're a peerless sword emperor? Suddenly, a hoarse and low voice resounded in the heavens and the earth, and along with this voice, a figure that was suffused with a bloodthirsty and murderous aura appeared out of thin air. She wore multicolored clothes, her hair was white like snow, and her plain and beautiful face carried a ruthless aura that caused one's heart to tremble. She stared at Lin Sun while a wisp of battle intent that seemed as if it was burning faintly surged into her eyes, and it was a battle posture of eagerness to hunt. I'm not. Lin Sun shook his head. Even if he possessed numerous supreme sword Dao inheritances, he wasn't a pure sword cultivator. At the same time, Xian Zhuin's nervous voice resounded by his ears, and it told him the identity of this woman. Xian Caney. She was in existence at the 6th level of the Emperor realm, and she was called the Spear-Devouring Sword Emperor. She'd once defeated 37 Sword Dao Emperors at the same realm with a single sword strike, and she was considered to be peerless in the Sword Dao amongst those of the same realm. Even Xian Zhuin had never imagined that this little ant, who was ranked 13th in the Sword Dao, would appear, and her surging battle intent was directed at Lin Sun. That sword strike was the inheritance of the sword drawing technique of the primeval Sky Splitter. If you're not a sword emperor, how could you possibly obtain his inheritance? Xian Caney frowned as she obviously recognized Lin Sun's sword strike from before. Just because I'm not a sword cultivator doesn't mean I don't know sword Dao. Lin Sun sensed a dangerous aura from this woman, and his black eyes narrowed slightly. Defeat me, and no one in the Xian family will stop you, Xian Caney said directly in a straightforward and powerful manner.